I'd like to call to order the Charter Township of Chesterfield Regular Township Board meeting for Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024, to order at 7 p.m. Could we all stand, face the flag, and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Clerk Berry. Could you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee DeMink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg.
Here.
Clerk Berry is here.
Item 4, the approval of agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion by Clerk Berry is support.
Support.
Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Berry.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 5, presentations. We do have a presentation scheduled tonight. Mr. Rheker, would you step forward with Trustee Joseph?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Joseph. I'm a township trustee here, and to my right is Dylan Rheker. We have a special presentation tonight, and it involves the Friends of Chesterfield Police. For those of you unfamiliar with the Friends of Chesterfield Police, the origins start back. We will be celebrating our 10-year anniversary this February, but if you recall in 2014, there were a number of issues that were happening nationwide that very negatively impacted police departments across the country. It was a very ugly summer. If you recall the case of Eric Garner and the I Can't Breathe, and then the Black Lives Matter protests, and there were a lot of animosity that was occurring around police departments. Police departments, in my opinion, were under attack, and a group of us got together and we brought in, it didn't matter if you were a Democrat or a Republican, and if you recall, our township police department had a few failed millages that had just occurred in previous election cycles, and it was very, very rough for our police officers. And what we were looking to do was bring together a group that just supported the brave men and women of Chesterfield Police. And so we formed that organization here. Our first meeting was in this room in February of 2015, and like I say, we had members of the community from all walks of life. It didn't really matter what your political beliefs were. If you were interested in supporting and helping the Chesterfield Police Department, we considered you a friend of Chesterfield Police Department, and I do see a number of faces familiar that were here in February 2015. Several years ago, we have a core group of volunteers that are at every Friends event, and they support the police open house, our bowling fundraiser, our Citizens Academy, our Junior Citizens Academy are all run by the Friends of Chesterfield volunteers. And about 4 years ago, we started with the help of my friend, Mr. Rheker, who is, by the way, Chesterfield's youngest sworn officer. Dylan was sworn in when he was 9 years old and participated in, I think you cracked the case on your very first day on the job. Yes. So he has been a valued member of the police department, and he is at every open house, every opportunity that he gets to support Chesterfield Police. He is there. So several years ago, the award for the Chesterfield, Friends of Chesterfield Volunteer of the Year was named after Dylan Rheker. Dylan is no stranger to volunteerism. He broke his middle school record and has been in every newspaper and TV interview. Dylan is a true gem in this community. He's a very good friend of mine, and I'm very, very proud to sponsor the Dylan Rheker Friends of Chesterfield Police Volunteer of the Year Award. In a moment, I'm going to bring up the current president of the Friends of Chesterfield Police to announce and talk a little bit about our recipient this year. But in the audience, I'd like to call and ask him to please come up. Mr. Shamam, who is the owner of the new Chick-fil-A. He approached me at a Friends event and indicated that the Chick-fil-A organization sponsors Hometown Heroes and a number of other organizations, and so he wanted to say a few words, and he has a presentation for our recipient as well.
Hi guys, my name is John Shamam. I'm the owner-operator of the Chick-fil-A. That's going to be opening soon. I know that's the big question. Let's just say it's soon. But it's not about the restaurant, it's about the community, and I just got to say, I'm nothing but impressed with the community here. I've been welcomed immediately into the community. I feel comfortable. I'm excited to be a part of this community. Nothing but a blessing, filled with gratitude. And with that being said, Dylan, you're amazing. You're an inspiration to the community. I want to follow in your footsteps and do what you do for this community. Hopefully you inspire many more people, not only in this room, but outside this room. So thank you for what you do. Thank you guys for having me part of this community and what you do with the police. So thank you guys.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So if I could have the Friends President, Donna, if you'd come up and say a few words about our recipient, I'd appreciate that. I'll hold it for you if you like.
No, that's okay. Yeah, got him. So this year, we would like to present the award to our treasurer, Kathy McNair. Why am I getting emotional? Oh, God. Kathy has been the treasurer of the Friends of Chesterfield Police since its creation in 2015. She makes a positive contribution to our organization with a remarkable level of commitment and goes the extra mile. Kathy has exhibited a commitment to the township through her volunteering efforts and is instrumental to the success of the Friends of Chesterfield Police. She also volunteers at the Veterans Home, which we kind of took her away from tonight. And we want to thank her for her leadership and engagement in the community and congratulate you on receiving this Volunteer of the Year award.
Thank you, Kathy, for your years of service. And I know you want to say a few words.
Yes, somebody's going to be dead.
She really loves me.
Thank you very much for this, but it takes a lot of people. I'm not the only one that's ever been here. There are many, many people in this room and not in this room that have volunteered their time and efforts. And it's always a positive experience, even though they don't think so at the time. Setting up in the rain, tearing down in the rain, carrying stuff. There's people that drive truck. There's people that haul bins. Everybody turns in. They say it takes an army to raise a child. Well, we got an army here. And anybody that wants to join us, please come to our meetings the third Thursday of every month at the police department. There's no charge. It's actually free. So you can come, be part of our group. We need everyone. Thank you.
And I think, thank you. I think Mr. Shamman has a little something for you, Ms. McNair, as well.
It's a little Chick-fil-A gift and some food for when you come by.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Dylan, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
You have been here from the beginning. You have. And you have been nothing but positive. Every time we go anywhere, you're there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Maybe the board could come down and we could get a group picture here. And thank you, Kathy. Appreciate you've been there since day one, and we couldn't have done this group without you.
Yeah, I remember we were getting rid of out of the back of your trunk.
Yeah.
Was the first time we had sweatshirts, and he stored them in the back of his trunk and was selling them out of his trunk.
Hey, $5 a piece. It was a good deal.
Item 5, department reports. Department reports. Let's start with board.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have two quick updates. One from the library board. Library board met last week. Some of the highlights, the new director, they've reached contract terms with the new director. They have delayed their strategic planning presentation. We hope to have it in November. They went over their 2025 budget, and it appears to be sound. The other interesting activity that they have is part of their commemoration of their 30-year anniversary is the readathon. Readathon, I will pass a few down if board members are interested. The readathon will take place on November 8th. And in essence, what happens is from 9:30 to 4:30 p.m., they will have local volunteers, celebrities, if you will. I think Executive Hackle is starting the event at 9:30, and the idea is to read from cover to cover the very first Harry Potter book. And I think we had some discussion after the meeting. They've timed it out, and they think that they can get from the beginning to the end during the readathon, which is from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So, Trustee DeMink, I know in your retirement you were looking to pick up the Harry Potter series. If you come to the library on November 8th and you get there at 9:30 and you just stay all day, they will read to you. There'll be a rotating readathon. So if you will commit to being there, I will sign up for one of the half-hour slots. But anybody who's interested in participating, I'll leave copies on the back table, and you can register by use of the QR code. The other board presentation that I have for you comes from our senior advisory board meeting, which was last night. And I really, Supervisor Kersten, you chair the meeting, so if you want to add anything to it, by all means, please do. But I want to say how really impressed I am with the way that this organization has come together. Trustee DeMink, I know you couldn't make it last night, but we continued on some of the discussions that we've had at earlier meetings. And for those of you unfamiliar, the Senior Advisory Board was formed several months ago after there was some confusion and problems associated with the renovations on this building, creating some movement, and the seniors programming was moved over to the community center. We had a number of issues initially, everything from HVAC problems to issues with the flooring and exercise being more difficult over there because the gymnasium floor is different than the senior center. And so we commissioned this senior advisory board, and we meet once a month just to hear from active seniors who expressed an interest in serving on this board. So last night's meeting, we addressed a number of issues. The biggest one was a fund balance of $61,000 that had been put aside some years ago in a campaign and donation effort. There were a lot of rumors about where the money went, and so at our last meeting, Finance Director Bauer came in and laid out to the penny the exact amount, and then the senior panel was tasked with going along with our Parks and Rec Director, Ms. Vanderson, going back to the senior population and saying, okay, now what would you like to do? And they came up with a number of things to spend that money on. And what we decided last night, or what they decided last night, is that they were going to continue to evaluate the best use for that money based on the construction being completed here, and then returning to the senior center here at the Township Hall, in addition to programming at the community center. So they're going to carve up that $61,000, which is their money, as they better understand their needs. We've just been able to resolve issue after issue with the formation of this committee, things that sound simple but were really quite problematic in terms of just setting up the room. So if you have a room that's being used for exercise and then the card players come in, is it really fair to have people who are in their 80s lugging these When we heard these complaints and we heard these concerns, Supervisor Kersten was able to, dispatch people to that and resolve those issues, and we continue to do that every month. And I was just very appreciative of the amount of work that these seniors put in to help out their fellow seniors, and it's a very rewarding board. And I don't know if I left anything out, Mr. Kersten, but I appreciate your leadership on that one. It's an area that we are in complete agreement on, so thank you.
Thank you. Covered everything. Any other department reports? Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Obviously, with the election 2 weeks from today, one of the biggest elections that we have had probably in our nation's history in terms of turnout, a lot to update the board on. First and foremost, as of today, our total number of voters here in Chesterfield is 38,484. Of those, 36,850 are active voters. The rest are inactive voters. We have sent 11,954 absentee ballots, which is approximately a third of our voting population, and we have received back 5,527 ballots, which is approximately half of those that we have sent. Early voting begins this Saturday, October the 26th, and will end on Sunday, November the 3rd, over at our community center, formerly Sugarbush Elementary. Hours are 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. all 9 days. That includes Saturdays and Sundays. We also received our reimbursement from the presidential primary that was received on the 21st of October for $82,801.17, which was the total cost of the presidential primary. And we have submitted our reimbursement to the Michigan Department of State for $13,087.50 for our August early voting wages, which we will be reimbursed for. On Election Day, we would just like to remind everyone to be patient with us, and there may be lines, although we are going to do our best to mitigate those issues, but we will be vetting each voter to ensure that the democratic process is protected and that only qualified electors are casting ballots. And we ask for the board and the community's assistance in assisting us with that. Deadlines that are coming up that are very important to know. The last day to spoil an absentee ballot that has been received by our office is this Friday, October the 25th at 5 p.m. The last day to request an absentee ballot by mail or to spoil a ballot that has not been received by our office is Friday, November the 1st, 2024 at 5 p.m. The last day to request an absentee ballot in person is Monday, November 4th at 4 p.m. is the deadline. And any deadline for signature cures. We vet each and every signature that comes on an absentee ballot envelope, and if we have sent you a notice, then your deadline to cure that signature so that your ballot may be counted is Friday, November the 8th, which is 3 days after the election at 5 p.m. We are getting a lot of questions into our office or concerns about if we have any non-residents or non-citizens voting here in Chesterfield. That's made a lot of news lately about non-citizens voting. And I just want to clear that up. The Court of Claims did issue a ruling on Monday in response to a lawsuit that addressed that exact question. Here in Michigan, there is a 30-day residency requirement for anyone who is registering to vote. However, military and overseas citizens are treated differently. The military is protected, and so are their spouses. They do not lose residency. So once they achieve residency here, so long as they do not claim residency in any other state, they retain residency here, even if they are deployed all over the world. Likewise, civilians who achieve residency here in the township and then move overseas and marry individuals perhaps overseas who are not American citizens but become American citizens through marriage, even though they have never lived here, they've never been in this country, and they've never been in Chesterfield Township, the judge ruled that they are in fact allowed to vote. So that is a judge's ruling, and it affects a very, very small percentage of our voting population, but that is the latest ruling because there has been a lot of litigation that has gone on with that. But we just had a couple of questions on that, but we do fully vet every application and every registration that comes into our office, and we will do so on Election Day as well. Also would like to update the board that over the last 48 hours, Chesterfield Township has risen to the national stage in a way. There have been national correspondents from NBC Nightly News in the Township today, conducting an interview with us, asking how we are preparing for Election Day. We completed that. They will also be in the Township. Both NBC and CBS have indicated that they are likely to be in the Township conducting exit polling from our residents and calling those directly into the news desks. So if you come to vote on Election Day or during early voting, you may be approached, or our voters may be approached by members of the national media. As Michigan is a battleground state and Macomb County is a bellwether county, they've selected Chesterfield as one of the communities that they are looking at in terms of what we think. So I think that's exciting. At the same time, we are not used to having that type of national attention. One thing to please explain to voters, and something we're explaining, they cannot be approached by any member of the media on their way into the polling location. And I did brief both CBS and NBC on that. They can only approach our voters when they are leaving the polling location to ask how they voted or why they voted. They cannot approach them to ask questions of who they're voting for on the way in. They also must be outside of 20 feet. There will be a 20-foot mark that our DPW will make at all of our polling locations. They cannot approach voters inside of 20 feet from the polling locations. So there will be a demarcation that they must respect. The media is allowed to be inside the polling locations. They are one of the few that are allowed. If they are credentialed members of the media, they may take photographs, they may film, but they must do so from only the public viewing area, which again will be marked for them. So should anyone see or have a question about why is the media here, are they allowed to be here? Yes, they are. From the public viewing area, they may film and they may take photographs. But our chairman will be managing that quite strictly to make sure that our voters are not in any way intimidated or concerned about what they may be doing. And these are professional members of the national media. These aren't local correspondents, although they may be here as well. The CBS interview I did via Zoom with national correspondent Scott McFarlane, which some of you may remember. He used to be in Detroit and was advanced to Washington. We conducted a Zoom interview yesterday with him, and my understanding is that that episode, or that is part of a larger piece on Michigan, and that should be airing either tonight or sometime this week. So just a lot of attention coming to Chesterfield Township, and I'm certain that our team is prepared and ready to rise to the occasion. But just wanted to let everybody know that there's going to be some visitors here in Chesterfield for probably over the next couple of weeks, and so you're aware of who they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further department reports? Seeing none, I'll move on to item 7, public comments. Public comments on agenda items only. There is a 3-minute time limit, and if you would, please state your name for the record for public comments. Not that it's required, just so we can keep track. Public mic is open.
Hello, my name is Keith Pyack, and I sit presently on a committee that's been formed for the streets, sidewalks, and paths, along with about 10 people in the community, along with some of the people on staff. I'm here to voice our support for an upcoming budget, your upcoming 2025 budget for the Zone 5 replacement program and the GAP program for the sidewalks. I think the replacement program is a $200,000 line item, and your GAP program is, I believe, a $400,000 item. We've met for now, I think, going on 4 months, and I think we're doing some good work getting to understand really what these programs are about and what we're trying to accomplish. I do believe this is a just the start of a long process. There's a lot of work that has to be done, and we want to support this, and I'm bring this to the board for your consideration on your budget. So that's all I have. Thank you.
My name is Joe Kadich, live on Sutton. I'm here to talk about the item A on the regular agenda, where you're looking to get an agreement to hire a human resources director. And my questions about that is, what are the qualifications and what are you looking for and why do we need one? I look at the last human resource director, and listed some of the things that he accomplished that really hurt this organization. He was hired by Dan Echevetti, previous supervisor. He was fired as city manager from Sterling Heights when he brought him here. And then Supervisor Kersten appointed him assistant supervisor when he was appointed supervisor. He did things to really disrupt how this organization is run and built. First of all, he changed the finance director's status from a regular employee with unit protection to an at-will employee. She'd been working about 20 years at that time. There was no reason for it other than the fact that they wanted to get a hold of her and make her bend her will to what they wanted. He also caused the whole water department office to cease to exist. He caused the director to retire. He caused the second in command, or the public works director, to change jobs because they wanted his S1 requirement, which is needed in the water department, but they didn't want to give the job to him. So he went to Macomb County. He's got a nice job over there now. And then the three women that worked in the office, one of whom had an S1 license, which they need, she wouldn't let them have the use of the license unless they promoted her. So they fired her. That ended up in a lawsuit, and I don't think anybody said how that lawsuit turned out, unless the lawyer wants to tell us how it turned out. I don't think it turned out well for us. He also fired another woman later that worked in the office that had made a probation period and was accepted as a regular employee, went back and added 3 months to her probation and then fired her with the explanation that's saying that somebody didn't like you. Everything in that whole office turned over. And after that, everything changed as to how money was distributed, where the money was coming from, that should have been used for the water department, but was obviously used in other areas.
Thank you, sir.
That's it?
That's it, 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Fascism at its best. John Speaker, Chesterfield Township. In regards to the bill run, continues to be a hot mess. Spending continues to be out of control in this township. And our trustees, with the fiduciary duty, not all of them, continue to neglect their duty. On the bill run, for example, under the treasurer's office, there's lodging with no name on it. So I don't understand why the treasurer and the supervisor's office, what they have to hide on who's going on these lodging, who we're putting up in hotels, who we're paying for Delta tickets, who we're paying for meals. It continues to be an ongoing issue. So I'd like to know what you guys have to hide, because you refuse to put the names on there on who us, the residents, are paying. This is our money that's being spent. And this continues month after month. Under the supervisor, I'm glad, Mr. Kersten, you had a luncheon on our tax money at $103,000 plus benefits. Obviously, you can't afford a luncheon. The items that I don't agree with on the agenda are A, K, N, and O. And under A, $9,500 for a consulting firm. Why don't we just go to Tryon Solutions and subcontract that out? I mean, you have no problem subcontracting everything else out. I don't understand why you don't subcontract that out. Under item K, for the sidewalks, I have an issue, not with the sidewalk replacement, but paying Spalder Detector 25% fee of your money goes to them. It's in the millions, folks, when it's all said and done. So that's our money. And then under item N, how do we put a generator on the inside of a building? How does that even happen? And now you want $17,639 allocated to move that generator? How does that even happen? Anybody with a little bit of common sense knows you cannot run a generator on the inside of a building. And if you don't know that, I mean, we've got incompetence at the highest level. And then on item O, on the spending of $74,000, I'd rather have seen that money on the sidewalks in this township. The ARPA money. How much of the ARPA money was spent on sidewalks? Zero that I know of. So, and you know what residents want? Sidewalks. You know what residents want? Safety. That's what residents want in this township. And we're not getting any of it. But you know what? In 2 weeks, there's an election, and I hope that changes. And I hope you guys vote to block Supervisor Kersten. Thank you.
Any more comments? More comments on the agenda?
Good evening, Janice Young. Item 10J, $83,000 from the general fund is going to go to cover excess expenditure at Brandenburg Park. Just seems like we spend a lot through Parks and Rec, and if this is something in addition to their budget, I don't think most residents really realize how much money this board spends on our Parks and Rec. I've said before that it hemorrhages money for this township, and everybody's like, yeah, Parks and Rec, it's all great, I get it. But now when we just keep spending money without it being accounted for, $83,000 is coming out of the general fund for whatever expense that is over at Brandenburg. Item K, the sidewalk replacement program. Mr. Speaker mentioned Spalding Decker gets a 25% engineering fee added to everybody's bill. So the residents that are up for that replacement this year, you might want to just check to get it done yourself. It's probably still going to cost you a little bit more because you're not getting it done in bulk, but I guarantee you will get better quality work. You can ask any of the residents in the previous 4 zones, and it is shoddy work at best. I've encouraged many of them to come forward. I don't know that any of them have. One resident in Stonehenge has come forward, and hopefully they refunded her money. I don't know that that's actually happened yet. Item L, spending $70,000 of our money, and then almost $30,000 of the ARPA money. My gosh, why don't you just use that at Brandenburg? Why is it you're going to put that money into Connie Bowles Park when you have a park that isn't even operating, it can't sustain itself, and you're pulling money out of the general fund to cover it? And as far as like item N goes, and I just looked at the agenda item, and yeah, that generator does appear to be in a garage, and it says it is exhausted out through the roof, through ductwork. My God, what happens if that ductwork was to fail when those people were in the building? Thanks. I'm gonna casually walk away.
Any further public comments?
John Noland. I would just like to protest a little bit of the sidewalk program. Not all of us, some of us go into retirement, Social Security and things, not all of us can afford that anymore. But what's really a sin is that right next to the new sidewalk that I had to put in front of my house, I have the sidewalk that touches the street has fallen, it's 2-3 inches, a trip hazard, and there's sewers, manhole covers that are falling in, and there are portions of the cement you can see underneath it that are totally unsupported. I understand that is Macomb County, but what good is it for me to replace these sidewalks when Macomb County isn't stepping up as well?
Item 8, the consent agenda. Clerk Berry. If you get, mute the phones. Take a minute. Thanks. Item 8, consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 8th, 2024. B, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support. Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Treasurer Elliott. Discussion? Seeing none. Clerk Berry?
Clerk Berry, aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 9, public hearing. There is a public hearing. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing? Motion to open the public hearing. Trustee DeMink, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Public hearing can be opened at,
She's gonna call it.
I'm sorry, Clerk Berry, call the roll.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Public hearing's open at 7:38. I'm going to make just a real quick statement, kind of a general statement on the public hearing, just so everybody knows what we're dealing with. Do you want to read the, I'm sorry.
Item 9A is to conduct a public hearing on objections to the cost of the operation and maintenance of retention, detention basins, approval of the special assessment roll, and spread of the assessment roll for each of the following special assessment districts. 1, Ruby Subdivision. 2, Sugarbush Estates Division. 3, Brycewood Subdivision. 4, Stonehenge Subdivision. 5, Winchester Donner Subdivision. 6, Anchor Point Subdivision, and 7, Industrial Park 22 Subdivision.
Thank you. Just a quick statement of why everybody's here tonight. About 20 months ago, we had a heavy rain event. That rain event resulted in a FEMA and emergency declaration for our township, a state of emergency declaration for the township that went all the way up to the president. We were authorized. We recovered because of that damage. Residents were able to recover just over $11 million in claims that was made by our residents and businesses. So when I took over as supervisor, we looked around after that and we're like, what in the world, why are we having so many problems? And storm drain management is something that the township owns. Specifically, and I'll have the attorney address some of the resolutions that cover these that go back long before most of us moved here or lived here, 30 plus years. The management of those ponds was simply mowing them, making sure that the pumps worked when they were checked. And I'm talking about previous operators or employees of the township. They maintained them, they took care of them, and that cost was relayed into your tax bills. Some of these ponds fell out of engineering specs. they're 30 years old. There's sediment, other debris that filtered into these ponds that obstructed the maximum use and capacity. So we sent the staff out, evaluated each one of them, and we had a hearing for a complete engineering return to one of the ponds. And the residents, when we had the public hearing, the residents spoke, and they didn't want it. They don't want to go with the complete re-engineering and returning it back to original specs. But in the meantime, we still looked at other ponds that needed work and needed upkeep. And that literally is where we are today. We have gone through, our township staff has gone through, we've cut back trees, weeds, made sure that drains are open, made sure that they're functioning, the pumps are working, and we are building a maintenance schedule for them. Now, a lot of this is historical, and we do have those records, but this is, we're getting it more into a routine. It is, it's expensive, and you have received the cost of operating these ponds, these retention ponds. Most of you have received them on your bills, on your tax bills, and they were minimal. But as we looked at them in depth, Phragmites has created a large problem across this community, and not just here, but through all this watershed region. Phragmites plug and block and drain, and then there has to be some return to or removal of sediment. And making sure that the inlets and the outlets are functioning and flowing, and then also making sure that the pumps work when required. Now, we didn't just do it for these 7 that you're all here for tonight. We have done this township-wide. A lot of the retention ponds that are in some neighborhoods now are controlled by homeowners associations. They manage them. We've even gone out to those homeowners association and looked at them and said, you gotta get rid of these Phragmites and make sure that your retention pond is working. We will help you. Our staff goes out and make sure that the inlet, the drains, and the pumps are all functioning. But that is a responsibility of those homeowners, and there are several of them, into the 30s. This is just one that I'm showing you a picture of. This is done on a daily basis, and this is a private retention pond. This is actually on 23 Mile Road. This is what it looked like before, when our inspectors went out there and looked at it, and then we went after them kindly and politely and said, clean your retention pond. This is where all the storm and rainwater goes. When we have heavy rains and we are in some period of wet weather, this is where the water sits. And it takes a few days for that water to leave that retention pond. If this is plugged and blocked and full of debris, it has limited capacity to hold water. That water backs up into storms, the drains in your backyards and the streets become flooded, it backs up into your yards. Again, quick general synopsis of what we deal with, but that is the problem. Some of these retention ponds, I can tell you that I've looked at, they haven't been maintained for 20 plus years. So what we did and what we can control. You received the letter. Nothing substantially is going to change on the process of how we manage them. We're going to better manage them. What you did get that you haven't received in the past is a notice. We're working on the retention ponds and we're going to do this type of work. And you, while I'm sitting here, you will get that notice next year, along with an inventory of the work that was performed. So you can see it before it hits your tax bill. This isn't, I am here to impose on you a cost and a maintenance, an exorbitant cost and maintenance of managing your retention pond, but the pond has to be maintained. And unfortunately, on these 7, the township took on the responsibility going back 25, 30 plus years. So these specific 7 that are in your subdivision that the township runs, this will be the process moving forward. But in the meantime, it's not just you as homeowners or us as homeowners. We've engaged the state. The state needs to clean up Salt River. I don't know if anybody spends, these are major waterways that all lead to the lake. We're in a flood basin, and I'm not an engineer, and I don't want to be an engineer, but I can tell you everybody I spoke to that says, well, when you have heavy rains, water's going to sit in your area for a little bit until it finds a place to go. So Salt River's plugged. We're working with the state, that's their responsibility, that is a river. We've worked with the county drain office. Insofar as this board approved $150,000 to fund the county, and Candace Miller matched it, to clean out several of the county drains that go through our township and actually start in other communities, but it all flows this way. We worked with the Department of Roads. The Department of Roads manages roadside ditches, and if you drive around this township, you will see that roadside ditches are very, very poorly maintained. And we even put in a quick little video. You gotta dig, you gotta maintain, you gotta get the phragmites and cattails out of your ditches, which then leads into, look at the culverts and the cement culvert driveways where the culverts are failing underneath the driveways. Those aren't our responsibilities, those are the Department of Roads. The Department of Roads' position is, that's the homeowner. So when the water is backing up on the roadway in the ditches in front of your house, you can look left or right, and if there's a plugged culvert, it's gonna sit there until that water drains away. Those are all issues that aren't the townships, but I've taken them on because the greater problem is the heavy rainfalls and making sure that these retention ponds are cleaned and managed and operational, so when we have a heavy rain, they can at least hold it for a while. This is one of, I want to say 30, and we have a whole photo collage of them. I didn't want to bore you with them tonight, but this is one of 30 that we've privately, that we've gone to the homeowners and said, clean them up, because this impacts all of our residents. So what you were getting, what you got tonight was you got a letter that said, we're going to maintain your ponds. This is the service work that we've done. This is the engineering work that we've had people look at it to make sure that it's functioning. And it is in your district. You have a district. When you bought your house, the district was established. Some of them, again, going back 30, 40 years. I just want to point this out. This is one of the retention ponds. This is an aerial view of, which one is this? Donner. That is a 48, see the little cement block in the corner? That's an aerial view. That is a 48-inch pipe that over the years has washed away from where it's supposed to sit in the corner. It is now sitting outward in the retention pond, along with sediment that is settled down in there, again, over the years. This didn't happen in the last 3 years. It's been like this. These are just things that I've directed our staff, go out, take a look at it. If it broke, we're going to fix it, and we have to fix it. So that's just a small snippet of one of the retention ponds that we're working on. The 7 of them that you got notices on wherever you live tonight. Again, it wasn't, we're gonna jam a project down your throat. We're obligated to manage them, and we're obligated to make sure that they function. And moving forward, you will get this letter and notice every year, so you can come in and sit down, and then you will also, my hope is, next year, get an inventory and a printout of all the work that was done through the year. Lawn mowing, maintenance. Some of these ponds, you need a long reach excavator that has, there's a design to them. Again, I'm not an engineer. There's a path for that water to naturally flow out of there. Some of those, the sediment, it just sits there. The other issue, some of them, and this one in particular, has 700 feet of buried 48-inch pipe that nobody's looked at. We can't find records that anybody has looked at for 20 years. There may be shopping carts in there. There may be bikes. We don't know. So again, that work needs to be done. I don't sit here telling you I like to spend money, but I want to make sure your basement doesn't flood, and I want to make sure that your road is passable. So with that being said, that's kind of the impetus of all of this. The goal is transparency, to let you know exactly what's going on. The other goal that I heard tonight, and again, the staff is here. If you have questions after the meeting, you want to talk with the staff members specifically, we've got your SAD districts posted out on boards. Ask questions. We're here to answer them. If we don't have an answer tonight, we'll get back with you. This is not about, this is your residence, this is your neighborhood. I can very simply, and the board can very simply, and DPW can just say, hey, we can walk away from it and not charge you anything other than lawn mowing, maintenance, and care, which appears what's been done previously. We can do that. I don't want to, and it adversely affects you in the long run. So again, my goal is transparency, education, The maps are here, the staff is here. Whatever questions you have, we're engaged with. We'll try and answer them. I'm not an engineer. We have an engineer on staff, but we also have a contract engineer that helps us along with these projects, and that's where we're at tonight. Well, that being said, I would ask that our attorney just kind of cover quickly how these resolutions and retention ponds were created, if you don't mind.
Yeah, back probably 30 years or so ago, when residential subdivisions like these were created, they were called platted, which they don't do anymore because it's a bureaucracy that most developers don't want to go through anymore. And so now you see site condominiums. But back in the time these subdivisions were created, there was a statute called the Plat Act. And the Plat Act said that when a developer came in and wanted to develop your homes before you all moved in and it was vacant, they would come in and they would have a plat, which shows all of the residential lots. And the statute said that if a particular development required stormwater detention, not everyone did, and I'm not an engineer either, but if it did, the township was required to assure that the owner, the original developer of your subdivision, called the proprietor under the law, was required to develop stormwater detention on site. And many homeowners associations don't function right. And some have very active homeowners associations, some have none. And so to avoid that problem, the statute said that if there is a stormwater detention facility in the subdivision, the local unit of government in which the subdivision is located will take on the responsibility to operate and maintain that basin. And in any given year where there's operation and maintenance performed by the municipality, there will be a public hearing like the one you have tonight, where property owners receive a mailing and there is an assessment roll that's prepared. And the assessment roll is as simple as taking the total cost of operation and maintenance, dividing it by the number of homes that are in the subdivision, and I'm simplifying the math, our assessors here, but that's generally the way it works. You will get an assessment based upon your pro rata share of the cost. And the statute absolutely requires that there be a public hearing, that the owners of residences within the plat be given an opportunity to show up at the public hearing and object to their assessment. They may say, we're paying too much, we don't need the improvement. Whatever comments you have to the board, this is your night to make them. If at the end of the public hearing, the next item up will be the approval of the roll. If the township board approves the roll, and they'll have to do it one by one for all 7, then that assessment will be placed on your tax roll, and you have to pay it like any other, whether it be your garbage bill or your taxes or whatever other assessments you have. But that's the process. It's annual, and it is a spreading of everybody's pro rata share of the improvements. And next year, it could be less, it could be more. It depends on what the operation and maintenance is. But that's the process. As Brad said, every single year, there's got to be a public hearing like this on the spread of the assessment.
Thank you, sir. And again, this has happened previously. It just didn't happen in this format. And I took a lot of heat over the last few days of, well, this is new. Yeah, it is new, but I want to make sure that you're informed. And that's where this comes from. This doesn't come from, we're trying to jam something down the resident's throat for that specific area. The concern genuinely comes from making sure that retention pond is functional, it's current, it's up to date, and it works when the heavy rain comes. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. You answered, actually, Attorney Seaborn answered a couple of the questions that, when the agenda was posted, I'm sure other board members, we all got inundated with questions about exactly what you said. This is brand new, and the process, the process of bringing the SAD forward on an annual basis is new. Arguably, it should have been something that was part of our annual presentation, but to be fair, this started because there was a comprehensive look at the stormwater management plan as a whole, and this is one component of that. The terms detention, retention pond are interchangeable, and I got a lot of questions from residents saying, I don't have a pond in my neighborhood, and if I understand the difference, a detention pond is in essence a dry pond. It may appear like one of the photos that you had of just a collection of phragmites, but really you have a pond that is just in essence dry. Stormwater runs into that, and it is dissipated fairly quickly, but it's designed, engineered to be dry most of the time. And that's different from a retention pond, which you may see commercial operations that are put in retention ponds typically will put in maybe a decorative fountain. But the purpose of that pond is to take all of the water from that location when they put in big shopping centers or businesses with giant parking lots. You now have an impervious surface. The water has to go somewhere. It's collected in a retention pond, and that pond stays what you would associate with a pond. So in a lot of our neighborhoods, people are unfamiliar with, like, where is this pond, because they're looking for water. And the reality is, it is an area that is designed to collect the rainwater. It will swell when heavy rains, and then it will dissipate if it's still functional. A lot of these ponds, we wouldn't necessarily see the pond because the original specs that were constructed under have eroded either through more weed, tree, debris in general, and they're no longer at anywhere close to the capacity for the neighborhoods. More houses come into a subdivision, more construction around, and you can see we end up with what we ended up with a few years ago, where my neighbors were calling saying, we haven't seen rain like this in 30 years. Well, flooding like this in 30 years. We've seen rain similar, but we never have experienced the flooding. When we looked at the process, we found basically neglected ponds, as was pointed out. And then the other thing that I got a lot of, and I tried to clear it up, it's difficult on social media, but a lot of people were like, well, if the township has been collecting taxes for this SAD fund, where did that money go? And why am I being... And the reality is I talked with the supervisor and confirmed, there are no SAD funds associated with this. It has been, as best I can tell, and if somebody has different experiences, I hope to hear it, but as best I can tell, what's happened is the ponds have been maintained on a minimal basis in terms of grass cutting or legitimate pump failures and things like that, where you have to go in. And those taxes are levied on your special assessment district on your winter taxes. And when I went back and looked at mine, and a few residents had sent me theirs, and I could see from the public access, it'll show up on your winter tax bill. It could be, mine one year was $10, because that year the maintenance on that pond had only been, a few $1,000s spread out over the 300 homes, and we share it equally. What we intend to do is have more transparency with the maintenance schedule, and just like in the Stonehenge group, which a number of my neighbors attended, that meeting this summer was a public hearing to discuss possibly a overhaul to that pond, a re-engineering and a very comprehensive maintenance, maybe a redo of that pond. And before the township did it, and my understanding from our engineer and the professionals here, is that pond wasn't necessarily at a catastrophic failure where the township had to act. It was something that the township residents who would be paying the bill should hear all the facts and then make a decision. So it was presented, and the homeowners in that group said, no thanks, it doesn't sound like a good return on investment, and we'll just continue with the normal maintenance schedule. And then to get a notice for this, a lot of my neighbors were confused, thinking, well, we already came out and we voted this down. Why are you, another, swipe at us? And it's really not. It's two separate issues. Tonight, we're just going to lay out and hear from the residents on all 7 of these impacted ponds. So I really did try my best. I'm not an engineer either, and I could see the frustration, I could hear the frustration, I understood it, and hopefully we leave here tonight with more answers and a better understanding of what this together problem is, because rain doesn't seem to care much about special assessment districts. It's just going to go where it's going to go, and I don't want it to be anybody's basement. We've had horror stories, and you know, people that routinely come to these meetings, they were, Mr. Kadich, I think you were at 40K. So these are big, big issues, and we want to prevent that. And so that's the purpose of tonight's hearing. Thank you.
With that being said, I will open the mic for public comments. If you would, again, just state your name, just so we can keep track. And it's in regards to the 7 items on the board.
Good evening. My name is Scott Hammond. I'm in the Brycewood subdivision. First, I want to say thank you for the efforts that's going to be going into this. I think this is a long time coming. But I do have a question, and this probably will go to more of the engineering side of it. With all the building that's going on in the township, the asphalt parking lots, the subdivisions, the streets and everything, we have reduced the permeable soil tremendously. Are we in a position with the current retention, detention ponds to offset or accommodate the additional runoff that's going to happen because of the reduced permeable soils? I think that's something that needs to be addressed and looked at. We just keep building, we keep building, we keep building. There's not really any work going into upgrading the infrastructure for the storm systems, but yet we keep tasking it with more and more and more runoff because of the lack of the permeable soils. So I just think that's something that I think needs to be looked into. Thank you.
Sir, and I'll answer it as much as I can. I'm not an engineer either. Our meetings with, so these ponds that I said are 25, 30 plus years old, they wouldn't be allowed today by current standards. And to your question of growth and elsewhere, I can tell you, and Mitch, if you want to comment, the standards of any growth now is, from my conversation learning, is twice of what your pond or district is. They're now doubling the size of it. So as you pave, as you grow, and again, we're not a city, we're a township, so we're limited into what some areas that we can do. But that question is under consideration on just about any site plan that comes in nowadays.
Okay.
And not only by our department or by the township, but it's got to go to Macomb County Drain Commission office. That gives the final seal of approval on them. So Mitch, did I miss anything?
So that's being taken into consideration with the existing structures? Yeah, go ahead.
And Attorney Siebert touched on this. Since the Platt Act, which was enacted in the mid-'70s, every development had to have a stormwater plan to handle the increased runoff that was being created by the development. So these 7 subs were built roughly in the 80s and 90s. They all have a pond sized for their full development. So if there's 100 lots on that sub, no matter when they got built, that pond was sized for 100 lots. All new development also has a stormwater management plan that everybody handles their own water. Then they contain their own water, and then they slowly discharge either to the road commission or to a county drain. So when there's a new sub that's going in on 24 Mile Road, they have to build a pond for their full build out. And that stormwater plan, and the design parameters have changed a little bit over the years, but the design standards have always been maintain your water for your development and find a suitable outlet.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Janice Young, I'm in Stonehenge subdivision. That meeting back in July was to restore that pond back to its original spec. And it was determined by apparently Spalding DeDecker, I don't know because only Mitch O'Connor was at the meeting, and he said it was operating at 90% capacity. But you guys took it upon yourselves to spend $17,000 of our money without asking us ahead of time if that's something we even wanted to do. So now we're on the hook to pay $17,000 back. I want to know, did you do that with the other subdivisions? Did you spend $17,000 of all their money as well? Because I don't think it's very fair that you did it with our sub and we took the hit for everybody. I didn't hear that happen anywhere. the little sheet out in the hallway out there, it shows all these electric bill charges, and when I came to the township to get the meeting, the information for this meeting, Karen Garby, through Carrie Bouvet, denied me information. I wanted the backup for this information. I wanted to know, how could there be a $1,000 electric bill one month and a $48 electric bill the next month? That just seems like it's pretty radical. And I guess if the pumps are running, maybe it takes more electricity, but that just seems like there's a huge swing in there on the electric bills. As far as the prior years, I FOIA'd the 2019 through 2023 bills, and I received them. I received 92 pages of very hard to read DTE bills, very small, faded, printed out work orders, things that didn't even have any numbers on them. As far as the mowing goes, I seen a guy named John who apparently was billing us at $60 an hour to mow the lawn. I don't know what that's actually for, because that's all it said on there, was brush hog, and then at $50 an hour, and then John at $60 an hour, for a total of $1,320. So I don't know what kind of accounting you guys have or how you do all that, but something looks a little peculiar to me. And also in those documents that I have, I didn't bring them with me tonight, I forgot them, there were 507 homes being assessed for 2019 through 2023. This year's assessment only has 480 homes. So where did those 27 homes go? How could there be fewer homes now than there was the prior years? And the condos were paying only 18% in prior years. We were paying 82%, roughly. Now it looks like on this current assessment, you're charging us all equally. So if that's the case, why weren't we all being charged equally for the prior 5 years? I think something needs to be looked at on that. Let's see. Oh, and we do have an in-house engineer. I'm not sure why we hire an engineering firm and we pay for an in-house engineer, but it seems like maybe we're getting double dipped on the engineering fees. Let's see. Oh, and as far as like the maintenance, all this stuff, Supervisor Kersten, you basically told me that I was ignorant for not knowing about these resolutions and understanding that there was a detention pond in my subdivision when I bought my home. I don't think that I was ignorant, because I haven't found a single resident that knew about it. I did go through and find the documents online through the county, and it is in there. It's like page 2 of the title work, or the exhibit page or whatever. There's 2 lines in there, but the actual documents are not even in our closing documents. You have to go to the county and you have to get them. And the last thing is, as far as getting the information, I was told that at this meeting that I had to FOIA the bills. I want to see the electric bills. I want to see the work orders for the lawn. I think we have the right to that. If we're paying these bills, I think we have the right to see the history on that without having to submit a FOIA and having to pay for it. The 2019 and 2023 paperwork, Treasurer Elliott told me that I could have them at no charge, and then turned around and tried to charge me $30 for it. She was gracious enough to pay the charge, but I had to actually kind of argue with her about getting it taken care of. So I don't think we should have to pay to get our tax bill back up. Thank you.
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. I don't live in any of these subs, but in my sub, we're having an issue with, it's either the retention pond or detention pond. And my subdivision is less than 10 years old. If these subdivisions can last 30 years without any work being done, and we have to have work done in ours in 10, and there's supposed to be a maintenance program, I don't understand what the problem is, because based on what I've heard the supervisors say is, I heard a lot of finger pointing with the county and the road commission, but I didn't really hear any solid, definite solutions. And to me, it sounds like, the residents are going to get a new tax every year with this SAD. And my question is, instead of, we had a resident come up here that said he was on Social Security. Why didn't we allocate any of the ARPA funds for this to help the residents out? I mean, I think this would have been a tremendous help, allocating the ARPA funds. I mean, you guys are willing to spend $78,000 on kayaks, but this is more important, the retention ponds, and helping the residents that live in this township and pay property taxes in this township. It's more important than kayaks, where only 10 to 15% of the population use the parks. So I see a huge disconnect between the board and what the residents' needs and wants are. And this disconnect isn't new. I've observed it for years. but it continuously keeps getting wider and wider, and this is just a prime example of that disconnect. And if the township is responsible for the maintenance, even though it consists of the grass cutting and the pumps, I mean, obviously the township had to be in these retention ponds in the last 30 years and seen that the growth was getting out of control and it needed, attention. And nothing was brought to the residents' attention, or nobody even said anything about it till the flooding started, according to Supervisor Kersten. So I think this is one element of the flooding, but we've got bigger problems than just the retention ponds. I mean, this is just a start, but I don't think this start is going to be the solution to the problem. I think it's a good start, but charging the residents, I don't think it's a good start. I would have liked to have seen the ARPA money used to help the residents out, because that's what the money was allocated for, was to help the residents out in the community. So, thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, I don't know the format here, but my understanding, there is no possible way we could have used ARPA money for the SAD. The SADs were created for a specific neighborhood group. It would only benefit the neighborhood group. If we use ARPA funds, we must use ARPA funds for projects that are the township-wide. Everybody has access to it. So I agree with I understand the comparison. Kayaks to detention ponds, certainly one's more important, but one cannot be used for an SAD that's limited to just a neighborhood. Even though it happens to be my neighborhood, I'd like you to use the ARPA funds to fix my pond, but there's 300 and some homes there. The township is thousands wide, so we couldn't use ARPA money for this project unless I'm completely off here.
Nope, you're spot on. Further comments? Pardon me? No.
And the water in the basement that you just announced it, I never had a problem before until the person in the back of the house came and blocked the drain. That's why I get in the water. And if any one of the employees that you have was intelligent and sensible, they would know exactly what happened, why that water coming up into the basement, and because it blocked down. You never block a drain. And nobody is coming out to look at it, and don't listen to me. I think somebody looking at me like I'm stupid or I'm dumb. I'm not. I did not went to college. I came over here to live, and I wasn't educated, but I was in a high job. Somebody wanted to know why I work. I work with the big trees since in 1976 until the present. They said I retired. No, I didn't retire. I was sick, but I'm still on. Please don't look at me as a dumb, stupid fool to know what exactly happened in it back there. My life is in my hand right now, and nobody standing up for me. You understand that? More talk is more getting it. Nobody coming out to say, this afternoon I'm showing the people all the flowers poisoned. The back of the house when I sleep and I can't go. The police come and ask me what help. It's two ways about it. When it come up to me, either do you hurt me or I hurt you, and this is something. My family was a high standard people. They never was in court and never anything. I'm the last child and they do not want me to stand there. We are very high position and they do not want me to be in court. And whosoever looking, somebody think I'm stupid and I'm dumb, take it off your mind. That's all. I live in 2 down block there now. Since 1983 I come there and to this present, I pay my tax. And nobody here want to damn thing anymore. Sick of it.
Thank you, Ms. Laurie. Further comments? Further comments?
Hi, I'm Renee Mercurio, and I do back up to the detention pond, or
retention pond, as you guys call it. I witnessed the work that was done, because I'm in direct line at the very back of the pond. And I also witnessed the grass cutting, which was not done properly. I mean, I'm no expert on grass cutting, but all of the phragmites that were up there, that were cleared out, are all growing back again. They were not cut. After that, your group came in and cleaned it up. My basement was one of them that was flooded, $20,000 worth of damage. So I want work to be done back there, but I think what you're looking at doing of this $500,000 worth of project is crazy. I would like to see work done, but about half of what you're looking to do. It's not fair. I only moved here 5 years ago, but I have to pay for all the years it wasn't taken care of. And I know friends that are on the block who are also on limited incomes that it's just not fair that we are going to be charged $1,300. It's just insane. And I would like that information to be said out loud for all of us. Thank you.
What's that? You can. Ms. McCary, Treasurer's going to respond to your question about the cost.
So that assessment that you had come to a meeting in the summer for, that was for $1,300, that was a different conversation. This one that we're talking about here is just for the cutting, the general maintenance, and that's what this is. So it's not a $1,300 bill. I would appreciate it if the department heads, the assessor and the assistant, thank you, assistant treasurer could come up and answer some of these general questions that are being asked, I think. And I think Michelle Fitch.
Michelle Fitch, I'm sorry, are you done? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I just think that there's a lot of misunderstanding right now, and I think coming from the department
I can
heads,
give you an
because
answer
that-
as to why. We
Yeah.
all got this letter. It said, contact the clerk's department and they will send you out what you will owe. They sent us out $438,000 at $1,329 up on home. And that is why a lot of people are concerned. Until I got to the back table today, I did not realize it's $52.76. Okay? I also asked Mitch, the engineer, since we have an engineer, why are we paying an engineering fee? And he said that our subdivision was one of the worst ones flooded, so the township took it upon themselves to look into this. We had our meeting, 3 people voted for it, 40-some voted against it. They decided to go with the vote and not do that. And that was fine, but when we received this, it was like our meeting in August was for nothing, and here we are today. But it's misinformation, and it came through the clerk's office. And I'm sure, I've been apologized to when I got here. So, I mean, and I've talked to Mitch, and I said, if you're an engineer, and we hired an engineer not to have to contract out. He explained he does not have all the equipment needed, and some things you have to contract out. That I understand, but those are questions that were never answered at the last meeting or when residents get up and ask questions. And if that stuff is given to us, at least we know and it makes sense and you can process it. Thank you. Just letting everybody know it's for Stonehenge, it's $52.76 on your winter tax assessment, which we've been assessed forever. I've been here 28 years, and there's something on my winter tax bill for the detention pond. That's not something new, but it's normally $5 or $6. Thank you.
Any further questions? Anything further? Anything further? Again, the staff is here. If you want to linger around in the back room, they're available for you to talk to. They'll go over your bills, any questions you have, or any misunderstandings. Yes, the previous invoice that has just been referenced, that project did not happen. So if you go to the counter or you ask for that project sheet, you got that project sheet, but it didn't happen. What we are doing now is just simple maintenance and care. So the staff's out back, if you have any clarity or questions. With that, I'll make a motion to, come on over to the mic then.
Sugar Bush Estates. When are these problems going to be solved? I mean, when are they going to start fixing these drains if they're having a problem? Right now. Does my pond in Sugar Bush Estates have a problem?
There are some issues there, but to tell you what they are right now, I would ask that you go right over to the engineer and he'll describe them in detail.
Okay.
The maintenance, care, and upkeep and cleaning is what we're doing now.
Are we going to figure out how much all this is going to cost for the sub? Are you going to show us?
Once that work is done and it's invoiced, you'll...
So after it's all done, you're going to give us the bill?
Correct. Yes.
I don't want my basement to get flooded, because I will be down here.
That's what we're trying to avoid, ma'am.
So to answer the number of homes in Stonehenge, there are 451 homes and 29 future home sites that are in the condo development. So on the estimate for Stonehenge, to clarify, the condo is billed by area. So the condos in Stonehenge was 18.17%, and the subdivision was 81.83% because it's billed by area, and that's how those how the percentage was split out for the billing. I'm not sure how to address the parcel count. This is what I have for 2024. I'd be happy to get that information to the resident, but I don't have future, or I should say, past special assessment rolls. This is the first time we've done a public hearing with the special assessment rolls. So before they were, previously they were just done as a an agenda item, a regular agenda item, and it was approved by the board. So this is one of the first years that we put the special assessment together.
Thank you. Any further questions? Again, the staff will be out back if you have anything, any additional or information that you'd want or ask for. That being said, I'll bring it back up to the board. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Motion, oh, hold on one second.
Oh, sorry.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The clerk's office is in receipt of 3 letters of protest for the retention detention SADs. The first one is Christy Boyle Osterbeck, 49190 Townsend Lane, that is in the Stonehenge subdivision, letter of protest. Joseph and Jeanette Dell, 50200 North Horst Court in the Winchester Donner subdivision protest. And Todd Boccaccio, 28724 Suffield Court in the Stonehenge subdivision, letter of protest. Also, Mr. Supervisor, if I could just take a moment, the clerk's function and role in any SAD is to provide notice. That's why my name is on there, and you are advised to call the clerk's office. We do not create any of the information that you're provided with. We provide notice, publication, and any documentation that is provided to us that you request, we will get for you. But we do not create any of the content for that. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion by trustee Demink, supported by Supervisor Kersten to close the public hearing at 8:25. Clerk Barry?
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Also, public hearing is closed at 8:25 still. Item 9B.
Item 9B is to conduct a public hearing to hear comments on the proposed Chesterfield Township budget for the 2025 fiscal year.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to open the public hearing,
Second.
supported by Clerk Barry. Clerk Barry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
The mic is open for public hearing on the 2020, proposed 2025 budget.
John, Speaker of Chesterfield Township, on the item agenda for the public hearing on the proposed Chesterfield budget for 2025, I think in all fairness to the residents, I think it should be discussed by the board and in details up there before anybody comes to the podium. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public? Any further comments from the public? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to close the public hearing. Is there any support?
Second.
Motion by Clerk Barry. Clerk Barry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 10A.
Item 10A is to approve Supervisor Kersten's recommendation to enter into an agreement with Vetrino Consulting LLC to help fill the Human Resources Director position for $9,500.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Vosberg. Mr. Herpich?
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see everybody again. It's been a while. The item on the agenda, I've spoken with Supervisor Kersten about, just to give you a little bit of history. The Human Resources Director position was posted back in late February to early April. We had about 38 candidates for that position. We interviewed through virtual screening interviews about 8 or 9 of those folks and did in-person face-to-face interviews with 5. The outcome of that search was we did find one candidate that we felt was a good candidate, not an outstanding candidate, but a good candidate. And the conversations with that candidate ended up falling through, so we're back to doing this search over again. In my conversations with Supervisor Kersten, I felt as though the applicant pool at least was lacking anyone with really any public sector experience, and I think that's just critical for this organization, is to have someone who's got human resources experience in the public sector. So I talked with Brad about engaging a recruiting firm, James Vetrino, and he's got a search company that he uses and has a tremendous amount of experience in the public sector in the Metro Detroit area, and he's got a proposal on your agenda for his assistance in conducting this search over again. And I will turn it over to James to walk through the proposal and answer any questions you have regarding his work and what he'll do for us, for the township at least, to fill this position.
Thank you to members of the board for reviewing the proposal that my company, Vitrano Consulting, has submitted for your consideration. I'll repeat just some highlights in that proposal, but I'm mostly here to answer any questions that you may have regarding the proposal that was submitted. Again, my name is James Vitrano. I've been in public sector since 2003. I was a city manager prior to starting my own consulting company in 2016 for a couple of cities in Pennsylvania, and then most recently in Rochester, Michigan before 2016. I've conducted over 50 executive searches only for public sector, cities, villages, townships, and counties in Michigan, and have the opportunity to work with some really talented professionals, mainly in Southeast Michigan, the Tri-County area, and that network that you build through the years really hopefully exposes me to candidates that maybe traditionally don't know they're looking for a position, don't realize that there's an opportunity in another community, are currently employed in a city, village, or township, but would be interested to know if there's other opportunities out there. I would hope to leverage those relationships, and honestly, through the last several years, those networks or sub-networks within LinkedIn and other social sites where you can reach folks that are currently employed in public sector and let them know of the opportunity that could be here in Chesterfield for them. The beginning of my search, or one of the most important parts of the search, would be to engage the board members in a conversation. I would start with the supervisor, but engage board members and employees on this important position and what their expectations are for it, so that I could understand as I build that network of communication to see if we can recruit a good candidate pool for the township. My goal through this recruitment is really to build that solid pool to do initial screening, to identify candidates to recommend to the supervisor and the others who may be engaged in the interview, and then to turn it over to the township to let them go through the interview process and the decision-making process. I can certainly assist with those interviews. I can assist with any piece of that after we get the right pool to you, parts of this process, but in listening to the issue with your last search, I really would focus on building a solid candidate pool for you to choose from, and then allow your professionals to take it from there. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the experience that we have, regarding the proposal that I've provided, or anything else that you wish to ask me.
Thank you, sir. Just the key element that he hit on was meeting with fellow electeds to kind of create the profile. So with that, any questions for him?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Vitrano, thanks for coming and explaining. I looked through the packet that you presented, and the first question I had was what Mr. Kersten just announced, and that is the Phase 2A stakeholder engagement. And the definition of stakeholder is on the first page, and that is human resources, just by title, takes care of the heart and soul of the township, which are the humans, the employees that run the township. They are stakeholders as well, and I was appreciative of the fact that you, as part of your assessment, will conduct interviews and discussions with the most important element here in terms of the service delivery, and that is our employees. So including them in the stakeholder, and then the individuals that pay the bills, which are the residents, have a seat at the table through their elected officials. And a lot of times, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you see it, the buck stops with the supervisor. Statutorily, he is or she is responsible for day-to-day operations, inclusive of managing the Human Resources Department. That's been a difficult task here. We've had a number of directors. The guy that introduced you was, particularly my favorite, and he didn't stay. And I think there's some attention that really needs to be paid to the culture here and understanding what our employees deal with on a day-to-day basis, and then incorporating the people's representative or the board members. I think it's a great process, and I know any expenditure is met with debate here, but $9,500 or $9,800 for this particular service given the magnitude and the impact that it has on the overall service delivery. We just had, two public hearings, and we heard from residents where we know, at a minimum, we can do always a better job of giving information and how we deliver that, and it is the employees here that ultimately do that. And so I think it's critical that we find the right person, and I think it's a worthwhile expenditure to approve this consulting fee to make sure that we have an outside expert help us to find the right person. And I like the way, the process that you plan to go about it, in particular the stakeholders. So very well done in terms of spelling out exactly what the residents get for their $9,500, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
It would all be over if he'd just come back.
What's that?
It would all be over if he'd just come back.
Yeah, I know.
Any further questions? Trustee Bosworth?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I approve of this too. I think it's a great move to proceed in this direction. In prior employment, we did this a lot to hire at the supervisory level, the department head level, and it's a good process because it adds another set of expertise that you have, that you would bring, that we don't all have. What I'm curious about is the concept of an HR director is fairly new with this organization. Would part of your work be to talk to those who had been the HR director or acting or even a consultant on for a period of time? Could it include asking them questions about the position?
Absolutely. As part of that early stakeholder engagement, as highlighted, we focus on the elected officials as well as the employees. And for this position, an internally facing position, those are the stakeholders we really focus on. But I would welcome the opportunity to have one-on-one discussions with prior individuals that held the position, with prior consultants that had influence over the position, or anyone else in the organization that would have past experience or knowledge that would help me understand the position better. Because when I go to my network, I want to make sure that I'm explaining it as clearly and accurately as possible, because that's my reputation to make this match work both ways. So I would be very open and hopeful to talk with prior individuals that have experience with it.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make some more of a comment. I think that because we're new at having a HR director, in the past, employees they always knew who to go to. It was the supervisor, and sometimes that was helpful for them, sometimes it wasn't. It's just about relationships, really. And I realize the HR director would be a similar type thing, but I just think it would be good to have all of those pieces on the table. And maybe we don't want to hear what some of the prior people had, but I think it's important that we do. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Any further comments? Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, normally I'm concerned about the public's money when we're investing it on behalf of the township. I am in favor of this, and for a simple reason is Mr. Herpich, the short time you were here, you're an outstanding gentleman. I have nothing but respect for you. You're a part of this process, I understand, with the supervisor setting this up, and I feel very comfortable that you're involved. And I'm going to echo Mr. Joseph and Mr. Kersten's remarks. I wish you were available and would come back. Apparently you won't, but I thank you for your input in this. And the question I have, I'm looking at the protocol of the process. Do you envision, is there any idea, would you have multiple candidates in the process that you might, your firm would probably vet out, or would you be looking at one person of that nature? Thank you.
Thank you. We would cast a wide net. I heard earlier you had 38 candidates in your prior pool. I actually think that's a nice size pool for that initial net cast. I would strive to identify a dozen, 8 to 12 candidates that on paper would appear to be most likely to meet your qualifications and expectations. I would interview those and then probably take that to some number less than that, or a rank order, that then I would work with the supervisor and whoever internally on your teams that will want to interview to select the 4 or whatever the number that the supervisor and the internal team is most comfortable with for a one-on-one interview that I would then turn over to the township to vet through that. As I said earlier, I can assist with that part, but my goal is to get you those 4 to 6 individuals that have been pre-vetted by our firm and ready and teed up for you to do those individual interviews.
I got one.
Trustee Domingue?
I'm fine with this. I think it's a great idea, and Eric, thanks for stepping in and helping us out with this. Much appreciated.
Clerk Berry?
How long do you anticipate the process taking?
Approximately 8 to 12 weeks. A big piece of that is 4 to 5 weeks in the middle, where we'll be advertising. The 4 weeks to 5 weeks is important because we will be also, not only through our social media networks, we'll be advertising in traditional public sector publications that sometimes are only monthly. So with that chunk being set in the middle, my early part engaging the elected officials and the stakeholders, the employees, that will start nearly immediately and go through the early weeks, first 4 weeks of the process. I'll be collecting that data as I'm collecting the applications so that when I go to vet the applications, I have that stakeholder information. And then I turn the process over to the township.
Do you anticipate that the holidays will slow that down a little bit, where we probably end up more on the longer end?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10A. Clerk Berry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you again, Eric. Appreciate it. Item 10B.
Item 10B is to approve resolution number 2024-25 to confirm the special assessment role for Ruby Subdivision Detention Pond operation and maintenance to be placed on the winter tax roll for the amount of $3,716.21, spread over 34 parcels for a per parcel assessment of $109.30.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Domingue? Clerk Berry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Domingue. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10C.
Item 10C is to approve resolution number 2024-26 to confirm the special assessment role for Sugarbush Estates Subdivision Detention Pond operation and maintenance to be placed on the winter tax roll for the amount of $2,009.47, spread over 58 parcels for a per parcel assessment of $34.65.
Trustee Domingue? Supported by Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Berry?
Trustee Domingue. Aye. Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10D.
Item 10D is to approve resolution number 2024-27 to confirm the special assessment role for Brycewood Subdivision Detention Pond operation and maintenance to be placed on the winter tax roll for the amount of $1,600.62, spread over 162 parcels for a per parcel assessment of $9.88.
Trustee Domingue?
Second.
Clerk Berry? Clerk Berry?
Trustee Domingue. Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. 10E.
10E, to approve resolution number 2024-28 to confirm the special assessment role for Stonehenge Subdivision Detention Pond operation and maintenance to be placed on the winter tax roll for the amount of $25,323.85, spread over 480 parcels for a per parcel assessment of $52.76.
Supervisor Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any support? Support. Trustee Demink. Clerk Berry, when you're ready.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10F.
Item 10F is to approve resolution number 2024-29 to confirm the special assessment roll for Winchester, Chesterfield Gardens, Donner, Meadows subdivision detention pond operation and maintenance to be placed on the winter tax roll for the amount of $4,697.41 spread over 468 parcels for a per parcel assessment of $10.04.
Trustee Joseph. Supervisor Kersten will support it. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Joseph. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10G.
To approve resolution number 2024-30 to confirm the special assessment roll for Anchor Point subdivision detention pond operation and maintenance to be placed on the winter tax roll for the amount of $1,929.34 spread over 45 parcels for a per parcel assessment of $42.87.
Trustee Demink. Supervisor. Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Demink. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
And item 10H.
To approve resolution number 2024-31 to confirm the special assessment roll for Industrial Park 22 subdivision detention pond operation and maintenance to be placed on the winter tax roll for the amount of $4,495.79 spread over 16 parcels for a per parcel assessment of $280.99.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any support?
Second.
Clerk Berry. Clerk Berry, call the roll.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Trustee Demink. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Thank you on those, and as I said, we'll get better at this next year when we present it, how it's presented. Item 10I.
Item 10I is to approve a request by the Finance Department to adopt Resolution 2024-22 to approve the 2025 fiscal year budget.
A motion to approve. Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
I'll support it.
Trustee Vosberg will support it.
Mr. Supervisor, I don't know how, in depth we're going to go. I'm not prepared to vote on this. I really think that the budget should be voted on by the sitting board. So I would like to make a motion to postpone the vote on this budget until the new board is seated. There are several candidates that could be here, and I think that historically we've always allowed the incoming board the opportunity to live with what they pass, and I don't feel comfortable doing that in October. I don't recall ever doing it this early, to be honest, I'd like to be a little bit more educated on the budget personally, and if others are prepared, by all means, go for it. But I think the new board, and that will happen by the first meeting in December. We can keep the conversations going until that time, but I think the new board should vote on this, and I would make a motion to postpone until our first meeting in December.
Is there any support for that motion?
Support.
Clerk Berry. Just some comments real quick. The budget schedule's been out. We've followed it, the budget schedule for the last 2.5, 3 years that I've been on. It's published in the budget book previous year. We stayed on that schedule. We gave this thought. There's no intent to impair any candidate that may or may not take the spot. Literally, the presentation was mine. I chose to stay on schedule with it. The budget's been both issued publicly and internally in draft form for the last 2 months. And we've made it available to all sitting members, so again, no disrespect to any candidate that might win, but I'd like to stay on schedule and follow through with the presented budget. So with that being said, I'm sorry, Clerk Berry, any further discussion? There's a motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Clerk Berry to postpone until, what date was it?
12/10.
12/10. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Joseph. Aye. Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. No. Trustee Vosberg.
No.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
No. Item 10 will be 10I will be postponed until 12/10, correct?
Yes.
Item 10J.
Item 10J is to approve a request by the Finance Department to adopt Resolution 2024-24 to approve the transfer from General Fund of $83,309 for 2023 to cover expenditures in excess of revenues greater than net position in the Brandenburg Park Fund.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Demink. Ms. Bauer.
Hello. Due to planned capital expenditures, a transfer from general fund of $83,309 for 2023 is needed to cover expenditures in excess of revenues greater than net position in the Brandenburg Park Fund. The transfer will be from general fund's unassigned 2023 fund balance of $10,886,389. We typically do all transfers at year-end, but due to in part the timing of capital expenditures, that transfer was not made. Brandenburg had approximately $1,060,000 in capital expenditures that year.
Questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Demink to approve item 10J. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Trustee Demink? Aye. Trustee Anderson?
No.
Trustee Joseph?
No.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott? Aye. Clerk Berry? No.
Item 10K.
Item 10K is to approve a recommendation by the Streets, Sidewalks, Pathways Committee for the Township Board of Trustees to authorize Spalding Decker to proceed with the 2025 Sidewalk Replacement Program, Zone 5, evaluations and contractor bidding for future board evaluation.
Is there a motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion again to approve. Is there any support?
I'll support that.
Trustee Vosberg. Mr. O'Connor, you want to address this real quick? This is a continuation of the sidewalk.
Good evening. This is a request for the 5th year, so Zone 5 of the sidewalk residential replacement program. There's 6 total years. We're in year 5, and it's the similar process as the previous 4. The sidewalks are evaluated in October, November. The bid documents are prepared. The residents have a chance to replace the sidewalks themselves, or the township awards a contractor, and then the township contractor does the work otherwise.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the board? Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, more of a comment. There's no doubt that the sidewalks and pathways, Mr. Pionk, who got up and spoke at the beginning of the meeting, I have deep respect for. And in general, I like the idea of replacing dangerous sidewalks, going back to Zone 1 presentation and hearing from our township attorney that without it, we do run the risk of having, finding ourselves in litigation. So the pathways plan is great. Like many things, the devil is in the detail, and the problem that I have, that I've had for the previous 4 zones, is the 25% administrative fee. It seems out of character from all of the other administrative fees attached to construction projects, big construction projects that an initial cost to build are in the millions, seem to take a different approach when we're comparing the sidewalks, which are just sort of one $400 slab at a time. But I find it, you know, it's been said that it's easier to steal $1 from 1 million people than $1 million from one person. And I think the aggregate here is generating significant revenue for what's called an administrative fee. It's 25% of every one of those slabs that are poured, and the total amount over the next 7 years to get through all of these zones, and then we'll start over again, because the level 3 or the level 2 sidewalks that were in zone 1 7 years ago theoretically could be at a level 5, and so the gravy train keeps churning. And as my neighbor who got up, Mr. Nolan, and he talked about the sidewalk replaced in our neighborhood, those sidewalks, they were poured right in the middle of the floods. And so we literally had water in our streets and all the way up 3/4 of the backyard, you know, near the deck. So there was water everywhere, and it happened to come down when they had formed up the 4 slabs in front of my house. So they put the base down, and then the rains came and they washed it all away, and they didn't slow the concrete down, because the next day they came out, literally brushed out the pit, the detention pond that I had, which was my sidewalk, and they poured the cement. So I'm concerned about the quality, and I'm also concerned about the administrative fees, and I won't replow the entire field. We do it every year, but I can't support the agenda item for the simple fact that 25% seems exorbitant to me. Thank you.
Further questions from the board? Trustee Vosper?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment, because I think it addresses something that was, people had asked prior. Sidewalks are the responsibility of the property owner whose property the sidewalk goes in front of. That's the general principle. So it would not be appropriate to, in my opinion, to use the ARPA money for that, because then we're picking winners and losers for the ARPA part. Having been involved in watching and asking questions and about the process, it's my understanding if somebody chooses to replace their own sidewalk, do the repair themselves, they're not part of this engineering fee, is that correct? They just on their own do it, they would pull a permit to make sure it was done to the specifications, but they would not be part of that.
Yeah, there is a period where the property owner gets, let's say it's 60 days to replace the sidewalk themselves.
Right, but they at their own expense.
They would do it at their own cost.
Whether they do it themselves or hire someone.
Right.
As long as it's within the specifications, they can do that.
Right.
So, but the involvement in the work that the engineering firm does is quite extensive. It's more than just collecting money after the sidewalk is poured, so.
Yeah, the
I
general.
approve this, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, the general breakdown of the 25%, it's 10% to prepare, to evaluate the sidewalks, to prepare the bidding documents, receive the bids and evaluate the bids. That's about 10% of their fee. The other 15% is construction, engineering, inspection, meetings with the contractors, processing pay requests. That is where and it's the 25% is actually written in the township ordinance. That's where that number came from. So it's about 10% design, preparing the bidding documents, and 15% construction engineering.
Thank you. Treasurer Elliott.
we've had that discussion about that fee a few times, and in previous discussions, and it's a very legitimate question, a very fair question of why that is. I think we've talked about a little bit of economies of scale, right? That is why sometimes in certain circumstances, people can save money. Maybe if they find an independent contractor that is willing to do it. But in most circumstances, this actually, even with the 25% fee, tends to be less expensive. And then we also have chosen to not charge any interest on these, which we normally do, but because we're understanding the need and not wanting to burden homeowners, unnecessarily, we don't charge any interest on these particular assessments. I have not been involved in this conversation this year, and normally I'm engaged in it. However, I have not been engaged in it this year. And you just talked about the difference between the 10 and the 15%. Can you break that down a little bit? Because I believe that the work level that they do, if I remember, I can say it, but I think it's better if you do. Can you break that down a little bit of what those steps are that the engineer does? Because I think residents deserve to have that answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
For the 10% to prepare the bidding documents, that includes the evaluation of the sidewalks in Zone 5. So they'll walk the sidewalks and kind of indicate the ones that are, I think we're just replacing the number 5 sidewalks. So that data is collected, they take pictures of it, they put a cone on it, take a picture of it, enter it into GIS. And then they, summarize all those 4-inch and 6-inch sidewalks into one bidding document. And then advertise for bids and receive bids from cement contractors. So that is getting through the bidding process is 10% of the fee. The 15% of the fee is, the daily inspection of the work. There's a lot of homeowner interaction on these jobs. You're right in front of people's properties. So the inspection, even though it's just a sidewalk, it's pretty intense because the people are paying for it. So the 15% is construction inspection and construction engineering of processing pay requests and any change orders. And it is, that 25% is kind of an industry standard.
Thank you. Further comments? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, I won't go back and forth with you, Mitch, but I'm going to tell you, I will be tonight going back and watching the video from the last time we had this discussion. And the question that was asked was, does the homeowner who prepares their own slab, do they get relief from the administrative fee? And I'm going to tell you, I heard it dramatically different the last time, and I'm going to go back and double check that, but I would ask you to make sure that you're correct on that, because I listened to Treasurer Elliott's question to you. She said, can you break down the 10 and the 15 in her line of questioning, I thought was to support the 25%. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but that's what I interpreted. And when you answered, you said 10% goes to prepare the bidding process. They have to walk the sidewalks, and they mark them either with paint or flags or no paint. I had paint.
You probably got paint like a day or two before, but the initial evaluation, they put cones and take pictures of them.
Yeah, so, but I'm saying to you is that at that point, we're still in the 10%.
Yes.
Where they're going to talk to the homeowner about why their slab was selected. That it's a level 4, or there's a gap, or there's going to be some explanation for why, and that's part of the 10%. They take pictures, and then you kind of moved into the 15%. But I'm curious, on the slabs that, if I'm repairing it, who covers the 10%? Do they do that for free?
That's a great question, and you have asked that question before.
Yeah.
So if David Joseph was required to replace 4 slabs, and David Joseph decided to do it himself, exit the program, the township still, 10% of the fee was to prepare the bidding documents.
Which was my question to you. Who eats the 10%? The township?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to check and look.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and again, yeah, I'm not gonna muddy the waters anymore.
No, I
We'll-
appreciate it
yeah,
because it is, you know,
It's a great question.
there are a number of steps, and it was my understanding that they charged, that the fee, in essence, they've done a lot of work. Whether we agree on whether or not it amounts to
Yeah.
25% is debatable, but they do the work. I pour my own slab, and I don't have to pay any of that, so who is paying for that? And I appreciate you going back and clarifying that
Yeah.
for me. Thank you.
Any further questions? A motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10K. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
No.
Trustee Joseph?
No.
Trustee Demink?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott? Aye. Clerk Berry? Aye.
Item 10L.
Item 10L is to approve a recommendation to award professional engineering and architectural services, boundary and topographical survey, and master plan and construction documents for proposed Connie Bowles Park to AEW Inc. in the amount of $70,100 and use ARPA funds to support the request and to commit $29,900 of ARPA funds to the construction and implementation of a parking lot and aggregate walking path.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion. Is there any support?
Support.
Treasurer Elliott. Mr. Sonnenberg, if you would.
Good evening. We have put a lot of work into this project over the last year, a collaborative effort with a bunch of us. I just wanted to kind of go over some of the details, but I would also like to discuss with the board the possibility of tabling this item till the next meeting. We've got some additional information in regards to the cost analysis that we were going to put together in this agenda item. And before we presented it, we actually got some updated costs, some comps and comparables that we wanted to share with you, and we were waiting those, and we received them earlier today. And I didn't have enough time to vet them, so I would appreciate if we could just have a quick discussion, kind of go over where we're at, and then table this item so I can bring it back to the next board meeting and we can finish our discussion. So right now, as of today, you can see the line, the yellow line that wraps around the upper portion of the property. This is our Connie Bowles parcel. It's at 25 in Gratiot. We've had lots of discussions about the future fire station that will be positioned on the right end of the station, close to the intersection. There's been lots of discussions with the engineering firm and public safety. This is an older rendering, just so we can kind of see how much work went into this. The fire station's actually positioned different, and then that pathway that wraps around is a future pathway. What we're trying to do is not do this a couple times, so we're trying to incorporate the future planning of the fire station and the pathway, so all those pieces and parts come together under one plan. So this next slide kind of shows some of the details that we were putting in during this discussion. We've discussed a ton of things: playscapes, courts, the way it'll lay out, how it'll flow, and what we came up with. It's hard to see here, but this is where our starting point is with our current engineer as we discuss this. So this kind of shows at the lower portion the plan that shows the fire station in pretty good detail. I apologize, I didn't have time to render it in 3D. I left that up to the engineering firm, but what I did do is I dropped it in our software, and then we started to render the path where we thought it made the most sense, and then any future things we could add. It's tough to see, but there's bench pads marked out in the path. What this does is it takes a lot of our discussions, compiles all that information, and then gives it to our engineering firm, so it cuts down on the back and forth and can keep our prices lower on the engineering. When you look at this package, just so everybody knows, the reason why it's a little bit more expensive is we asked for the topo and boundary surveys, which is typical for this brand new parcel of property when you go to develop it. We also asked for conceptual design to be completed and full set of construction documents for this path. So once we completed this process, we would have a full set of drawings to go out to bid next year and get this work done. But at this point, when we were having the discussions with our current engineering firm, we went back and forth on a couple prices, and I got some updated numbers just today, and I just wanted to make sure everything was current. So I would love the opportunity to go back and review those if I could and bring it back to the next board meeting if that's possible.
I'll amend my motion to table this until the next meeting.
Thank you.
Is there still support?
Continued support.
Clerk Berry.
Just-
Mr. Supervisor, just before Josh goes, could we, when he comes back with the, you know, the updated information, could you also include any topographical work that's been done by AEW on this property in the past? And I know that they've done a lot of work for us in various projects, but I'm really thinking that we had some topography work done, and it maybe needs to be redone because it's specific, but boundaries in particular would be something that I would really appreciate you looking into and incorporating when you bring it back. Thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
Table this until the next meeting. Treasurer Elliott, continue support?
Yes. And the date of that meeting is 11/12. Is that correct? That's what I have. Okay.
Thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, after the fact, I'm just inquiring, I noticed that restrooms are in the next phase in the plan on this. Is there any provisions, like, we got activities, is there porta-johns out there or anything for the public at this point, or will they, or do you have that, is that being addressed at all from the get-go if this is approved?
So porta-johns would be an option in the beginning. There is, in the fire station space, there is some community space that they have designed in that fire station space. So for us to put outdoor bathrooms, I guess, we would wait to see how heavy the use got. We will have an area planned for those in the future, but our first goal would be, phase one is to get the parking lot and the path in, and then phase two would be working on the fire station and all the supporting infrastructure. We can't really put bathrooms in until we put the fire station in because the plumbing would kind of tie together, if that makes sense.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to move this to the 11/12 meeting. Is there continued support?
Yes.
Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Thank you.
Item 10M.
Item 10M is to approve a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to execute an agreement between the Michigan Department of Transportation and Chesterfield Township for maintenance of the I-94 and 23-mile interchange from October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2029, and adopt resolution number 2024-21.
Trustee Joseph will make a motion. Supervisor Kersten will support. For everyone, just take kind of an eye. I wish we had pictures of what it looked like prior to. Stephanie, the floor is yours. Mike's yours.
Sorry. Okay. The request to enter into this contract is not a new request. We've just finished our second year of a contract with MDOT. This is the area that we currently cut with the help of a contractor. We go out to bid to get, obviously, bids for contractors to do the work, and then MDOT reimburses us for that work. This is some pictures of what those intersections and those areas look like before we cut them. The picture on the top left, I don't know if you can see in the middle of that field, is one of the tractors. Our contractors make all efforts to go out there during all seasons, April through October, and get that cut. Sometimes they can't cut as much as they'd like, and thus that picture with their tractor getting stuck. But they do cut as much of that area in the green as they can. This is what that intersection looks like in its current state. I don't know if everyone pretty much drives past there, and hopefully you can tell the difference on the state of that area. This is another view of the current condition. This area right here, I'd like to point out the yellow triangle. This is the park and ride. That yellow triangle was not included in MDOT's contract, but our current vendor who cuts this, Tommy's Lawn Care, he is maintaining that area under his current contract and under his current amount that he's bid for the 2024 season. So it's another improvement that we've been able to do to the area that has not been an extra cost to the township. This is just a couple pictures of that park and ride and how that outer area has been, what we maintain there. Obviously, this is the before picture, not the after picture. This is how the cost breaks down. So we started this contract for the 2023 season, and because the intersection was under construction during that summer season, the previous contractor only mowed the lawn in that area in the months of May, June, and July, and then they came back in December. So in 2023, the township paid the contractor $17,000 for their service. MDOT reimbursed $14,000 of that, costing the township overall $3,000 to maintain that area in 2023. MDOT has a cap on what they will pay. In 2023, their cap was $14,000. In 2024, you'll see it increased to $500. So the detail is on the screen for the 2024 season. You'll see that we did hire the contractor to do a spring cleanup, and that was very important for their service for the season because they pulled out numerous items, as you can only imagine, from the side of the road to then help them better service the lawn and the sides of the expressway there. In 2024, we paid $16,625 to the contractor during the season of the contract. In addition, we've paid them to mow twice in October at a cost of $1,170. So taking our total expense to our contractor this year at $17,795, and then less the MDOT reimbursement takes us to a total township cost of $3,295. So looking at the MDOT's contract that they're proposing is for a 5-year period. That's how MDOT does their contracts because they go out for bid for their cost as well. So the request is for the supervisor to enter into the 5-year contract, but there is an option to get out of the contract if you want, but it's a 2-year look ahead. So if we wanted to do this contract for a year, then we could give them notice that we wanted to end our contract, but then we still have to fulfill the next 2 years, giving them the opportunity to get somebody to take their contract on. So I would entertain any questions if you have them.
Any questions from the board? Trustee Anderson?
More of an observation. Recall, I don't know what year it was, a young mom about the age of my youngest daughter was exiting 21 Mile Road, or 94 on the 21 Mile Road, and she was involved in the accident. Both her and her unborn child died, and I can recall, I think it was Detective Marker, Chesterfield Police Department at the time, said, big problem was your sight lines when you pull up. Debris growing, shrubs, everything else, you can't see the intersection. It's blocked. I've noticed that seems like they've kept that trim since then. I look at these things, initially, worry about money, but I look at those wide open areas, some people getting off the Audubon there. I guess there's merit to keep it. Besides just picking everything, it'll keep the organic growth down, manageable. So I believe it's a wise investment of our money, or a worthwhile one. Thank you.
Any further questions? Just on a side note to that comment, Trustee Anderson, MDOT is putting a 10-foot pathway on the north side of that overpass in 2026. That's already been in engineering design, which connects now. That'll be the only walkway that we have legitimately over the overpass. It'll be a barrier protected, and it'll provide that access for foot traffic. I have a motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to approve item 10M. Clerk Berry?
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10N.
Approve a recommendation by the Facilities and Operations Department to fund the DPS generator relocation project in an amount not to exceed $17,639.
Trustee Joseph.
Support.
Supported by Clerk Barry.
Good evening. Just want to go over a couple pictures with you and have a discussion about how we came about this and what our plans are to adjust the original proposal. So as you can see here to the left, our DPW facility, which is a 32,000 square foot shed, has the generator on the inside. I know there was a lot of public comments earlier about concerns of generators being inside. In a commercial application, it is safe. It can be typical, especially you'll see in a lot of your high-rise buildings, is a typical application that's set inside the building. So it can be done if it's done properly. The problem that we have here is it's a generator inside what's essentially a sound chamber. And when that generator runs, it's loud. Typically what's done is you got walls and other sound suppression items. If we have an emergency and that generator is running, and I've been there, that generator was installed before my time here in Chesterfield. And every time we've had a problem, for example, last week, we had a bird hit one of our legs of our three-phase power, and we were the only one that was down for 2 hours before DTE could come out and put our power back on. And that thing ran middle of the day for 2 hours, and it's loud. So when we first started, one of the things we earmarked was to look at adjusting that generator, either building a wall around it or adjusting the venting, because the other issue you have is when that generator runs, it builds up heat. There's an exhaust that runs through the roof. It's safe, but when it discharges the air, it actually circulates the air inside the shop. So there's vents to bring in fresh air, but the discharge is just circulated. So the problem was in this design, what they proposed is to cut a hole in the wall. And actually, when I showed up, there was actually a steel grate that was never installed. So that discharge air, you can see the red box on the left and the blue arrow. The intent was to have ductwork punch through the cinder block wall and discharge that hot air back outside. So when we looked at this issue, we put out an RFP back in June to get this work done and also look at the venting issue, that the discharge or the exhaust that goes up through the roof. We put this out for public bid. We got one bid back at $34,000 to do this work. We budgeted $25,000, and we wanted to put it out to bid and make some decisions after we got those numbers back. Now that we have those numbers back, we reevaluated this, and as you can see, let me go back to this first slide. The red arrow in the lower corner represents where the generator is in the building. That green arrow is where we plan on placing it outside. Simply put, all we really have to do, the way that generator is set up, the case is an exterior case. We could take that, our gas and our electrical, which you'll see the numbers are broken down in our proposal, set the generator outside, rerun the electrical, which is a shorter run because we pull it back from its original feed, and then extend the gas, the natural gas to this generator, pour a slab outside, and we could place it outside. Instead of spending the original budgeted $25 or the contractor's budgeted price of $34, we found in-house we could do it for $17,000, and that's broken down in our proposal that's attached.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, I appreciated the presentation at the last board meeting, and I kind of understood at least in theory, because like some of the other speakers, when the power goes out, you got to be careful not to move the generator, the portable generator. I'm talking residential, like there's all kinds of horror stories about people, setting up their generator too close to the house. And so, we kind of become conditioned to the idea the generator belongs outside. But when the original application or installation was done, you didn't really have a lot of people inside that building, and I was trying to find, maybe you could speak to it, there are advantages in terms of the protecting the generator itself from the elements when it's inside. The decision at that point was you keep it inside, you extend possibly the life because it doesn't get exposed to the elements, but then you have added burden of making sure your exhaust and your fresh air, which you're determining now, it ain't lining up. To mitigate that, it was, from the original presentation, cheaper to go outside. What do you think in terms of the life of this particular generator, where it's at right now? What do we expect to get out of this, long-term, I guess shortly put, where are we in the lifespan of this generator in terms of how many more years of service can we expect out of this?
So thankfully, our generators, since we've been here, have been professionally maintained by a contractor. We have remaining useful life estimates on all of our equipment. These generators that we have, the majority of them, and almost every one of our facilities, except for a community center, has a generator backup. So we are lucky in that regards. Most of those generators were put in, I want to say it's kind of a range, but before I was here about 10 years ago, they were put in different sets, different series. So they still have some remaining useful life, but you'll see actually when we go into next year, we were going to bring a capital plan and kind of show each generator its remaining useful life and plug those numbers into our capital plan, because although they have enough, I would say, projected useful life for the next 5 to 7 years, beyond that, we would start looking at replacements, especially with this unit here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I have a motion by trustee Joseph, supported by clerk Berry, to approve item 10N. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Joseph? Aye. Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee DeMink?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 10O.
Item O, approve a recommendation to purchase kayak launches for Salt River Nature Preserve, Weber Paddle Park, and Brandenburg Park in the amount of $74,002.82 and allocate ARPA funds to this purchase.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Vosberg.
So back in June, the board allocated $75,000 of ARPA funds to new kayak launches. You can see we looked at all types of kayak launches. This launch in particular is one of the best ADA kayak launches there is. It's an easy dock system. There's several of them that we've looked at. The closest one we have in this area is Marine City. There's a similar one to this, but the launch that we currently have at Weber Paddle Park is an ADA launch, but it's similar to the Metro Beach launch. When we looked at it, we thought that was a pretty good solution because it captured not only a fishing aspect, but a kayak aspect. You could get up to the rail and you could fish over the rail, but still get your kayak out. You could see in this drawing here, this is more kayak friendly. What we don't have in our current system is those long reach rails where when you pull up, you can pull yourself into this unit. It's a really nice system. This unit is the bigger of the 3 units that we were looking at. This is the lion's share of our money. This is the one that we're going to put at Weber Paddle Park because the Weber Paddle Park is set up as ADA compliant, and this is an ADA compliant launch. So you can see the different features that it has. You're able to come out to the launch, safely climb. They have a slide system that you could scoot down on your kayak, and then those rails and rollers make it super friendly for you to get in and out of that kayak launch. So this kayak launch would be placed at Weber Paddle Park. I'll show you. Right there where the soft launch is currently. So as we touched on earlier, that launch just below it is an ADA kayak launch, but for those avid kayakers, it's not the easiest launch to get in and out of. If I go back, let me go back here and just show you something. If you can see in that first slide, this 2 pictures to the right, that's actually our current ADA kayak launch. And you can see, although it's a nice dock when you get out to the end, there's plenty of spots to fish. It's kind of a universal fishing and kayak launch. When you go to slide into that launch, there's nothing to grab on or pull yourself in, so it's kind of tricky to get in and out of. So that's why we wanted to place this launch at Weber Paddle Park in that area that's shown in the red, which is the soft kayak launch now, closest to the handicap parking spots. So that is what we're planning on doing at Weber. The other two launches, that's the other area you can see at Weber that we plan on putting that launch. The other two launches are a little bit smaller. You can see in this picture, there's a section where you're still able, the nice part about this Easy Dock is you're able to hook your kayak paddle in and pull yourself through it and traverse from one side to the other. Then there's two sections in the middle you'll see of floating dock, so it's plenty stable, and then there's a gangplank. This unit is a little bit smaller. This is the one that's about $13,000 a piece. We plan on putting one of these at Brandenburg and one of these at Salt River Nature Preserve. And the location at Brandenburg is, if you're at the boat launch area, you walk over to the side, and you can see we put, during our Brandenburg Shoreline project, we put a kayak launch in out of stones, but the issue we've been having is a lot of avid kayakers claim that those stones are kind of hard on your kayak, so this will kind of meet their needs and give a safe way for kids to get in and out of the water walking up that gangplank. The next area we would put it is down at the end of Hooker Road at our Salt River Nature Preserve. There's a soft launch there now. The idea is that you could kayak from Weber Paddle Park to this launch here. And as this park develops, we can move that kayak launch around, but we just wanted to give somebody the opportunity to get in and out of a kayak safely at those locations.
Questions from the board? Treasurer Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Couple of questions. If you could go back to the picture, can you go back to the picture where, at Weber? Here, that one. I don't know if that one shows it. Maybe it's the one previous to that, where the handicap parking is. It's
Yeah,
right,
handicap
it's right
parking
there.
right there.
Yep, that's the handicap park. And I drove out there today, and I did call you and ask you this question. So wanted to, can you share, we talked about what it would take to have cement put down there. And I had called you earlier and asked you if you had planned for that. Because if you are handicapped and you're coming to use that, which there's a big piece of grass there. Did you get a chance to look at that, Josh?
I did. So our initial goal was to get these launches set, have the community look at them, make sure they're positioned right, and then this one in particular, to make it fully ADA, we would have to run a section of sidewalk from where that picnic table is to that launch. It's roughly about 38 feet, we'll call it 40. A 4-foot walk at $12 a square foot is about $1,900, call it $2,000, to run that sidewalk with cement from our new kayak launch to where those parking lot spots would be, so you could run a wheelchair straight through. So you're at about, we'll call it $2,000 to run that piece of sidewalk from kayak launch to cement.
Thank you for looking into that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I also, when I had called you, I'd also asked you about the Brandenburg Park piece. And if we want to go over there. And for that one, you know, my concern is that you would block that area, that kayak launch would block that area. And where, is there a way to move that to a little bit over, or how would that work? If that were a possibility, or do you need more, you know, more pieces, or what are the options?
No, we could. We would like to keep it inside of that first break wall, kind of close to the boat launch, but we could scoot it closer to the pier. With this launch, with the gangplank, it's really just a matter of setting it over the rocks, and with the flexibility with those rocks on site, we could move a couple of those rocks and just get that gangplank to go down. Because to your point and to your question, where that arrow is, that is the only spot in that area that people are able to go down and put their toes in the water. And I've seen plenty of dogs and people that walk down and they go right to the water's edge. So we could easily move that down and reposition it. And that's kind of what our goal with these, just like the floating docks. We have a lot of flexibility. We don't want it to become stagnant. We can move these things around. But once we submit them in place, then we would leave them. But for now, we have the flexibility to have some movement once people get out and try them. And we can get a sense of what they really like, especially with our kayak rental service provider. We're waiting and excited for him to have the opportunity to use these and give us some feedback.
Good. Further questions from the board? No further questions? We have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosper, to approve item 10O. Clerk Berry?
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Trustee Vosper?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
No.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Demink? Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Clerk Barry, no.
Item 11, addendums, there are none. Item 12, public comments. There is a 3-minute time limit on public comments. If you would, please state your name for the record. It is not required, just so we can keep track. Floor is open.
Hi, Nancy Hutchinson. Just a minor thing, and I know everyone wants to get home. Now that I have a new pup, we are walking around this pathway probably 3 or 4 times a week. Every single time I come, there are off-leash dogs. And I don't remember, did the dog park idea back here die? I know there's not much, I'm obviously not gonna pull the police away to ticket an unleashed dog, but I just wanted to put it out there so it would be part of the record. I used to have a very, very dog-aggressive dog. If a dog came near him, the dog was dead. Now, luckily, that's not the case, but I still don't want strange dogs approaching. And I see it all the time. And I know a few times I've seen a cadet car driving through here. I don't know if that would be a possibility, if, a cadet could just say, hey, leash your dog. It would look a little better than Karen telling them to leash their dogs. That's all.
Joe Kadich, live on Sutton. Thing I want to get out when I talked earlier about the Human Resources Director is the fact that he changed everything in here that allowed other people in that building, the facilities and operations and public works, to tap into the water department funds that were strictly for rebuilding or replacing old lines to the tune of about $1.7 million, $1.8 million a year. It hadn't happened before, and we haven't had any old lines or anything replaced in the 4 years that Kersten's been the supervisor. And there's no accounting for that money. It was spent someplace, probably on Parks and Rec. And I'd like to get that stopped. You mentioned about the fact that he was concerned when he talked about the flooding in the ponds, the fact that he was concerned about the basements flooded. My basement flooded, a number of people's basement flooded, and they flooded because nothing was done to replace the pump stations, the lift pump stations on Jefferson, or the outflow station from the Deming Storm Station. And they still haven't been repaired, and the money's not there for it. And it's ridiculous. You also talked about the Salt River, you wished it needed cleaning and flooding because of flooding. You had an opportunity. The EPA had a $1.25 million project in there to dredge the Salt River Marsh. And that's the area that all the stuff from Hooker and Jefferson flooded into that marsh. That was all blocked. They had a $1.25 million program to do that. When they changed, and when Kevin Johnson left, who was our representative there, I asked you if I could sit in on that and keep it going. You didn't. And when I asked you again, you said that's their problem. You had no control over the EPA doing work in your community. Now you're saying they should have done it. This is ridiculous, the way you're handling this whole situation. Is that me? Done? No? Okay, sorry. I don't know what people can do. I'd like to suggest for this coming election, you're going, there's nobody running against you. There's nobody running against the treasurer. But at least if people looked at it and instead of voting straight ticket, instead of circling something by your name or by the treasurer's name, leave it blank, or put their own name under there as a write-in candidate. Maybe that'll send a message. And at the same time, I hope, in looking at the candidates for trustee, they bring back Trustee Anderson, Trustee Joseph, bring in Jim Latch.
Thank you, sir.
Okay?
John Speaker, Chesterfield Township. We're 2 weeks out to the November 5th election, and if we've seen anything tonight, Supervisor Kersten has no guardrails and no checks in place, especially for the wasteful spending in this township. So it's critical with the upcoming election that he gets checked and stopped. So it's going to be critical to get 2 new trustees on there to check him and to end this nonsense of the wasteful spending. I'm going to give you one example, and this board's aware of it. Some of them are going to play dumb and pretend they don't know, but they do know. Sutton Road got paved. So the proper way that should have been done is there's a water line that Joe keeps talking about underneath Sutton Road. That's a cast iron water line. There's approximately anywhere from 37 clamps or more on that water line. So at some point, that water line needed to be replaced, and it's going to go again. So the proper way of doing that is replace the water line and then pave the road. So Supervisor Kersten and the rest of the board, because the board's at fault for this, the road got paved, but the water line didn't get replaced. Talk about wasteful spending, because at some point, that water line's going to go. They're going to have to break that road up and repave it. So again, the nonsense, and as residents, we got to be embarrassed. I mean, this is a reflection of the board that we have. So I know for me, it's a total embarrassment, because these are the people that we have up here making the decisions for the majority of us. And I can guarantee you that in the public sector, most of them wouldn't be, they'd be unemployed. So Sutton Road was just one example. I could go on and on. Another example tonight that should have set the alarm off was the 2025 budget. Supervisor Kersten wanted to push this budget and shove it down everybody's throat prior to the election. It was intentionally done. Thank God that there was a minor guardrail to stop the silliness, but very seldom does that guardrail ever pop up and come to a complete stop. But he tried, so I give him credit. He definitely tried, but we definitely need, a Jim Latch on there, and we need a minimum of 1 to 2 trustees that will check him and guardrail him. I mean, that should have set alarms off, that the supervisor wanted to shove a 2025 budget. He didn't even discuss the budget. He brought it up as a public hearing without discussion. That itself should have set alarms off. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Jim Locke. We see there's $83,000 for Brandenburg Park from last year. Well, the question was asked at a meeting 2 weeks ago or a month ago, I forget which. It came up about the Bassmaster fishing contest again. Well, and at that time somebody asked, well, how much did it cost us? What was our cost? Nobody ever had an answer that night. We got that answer tonight, $83,000. So you get to have a fishing contest here, it costs us $83,000, and you want to do it again next year. what return do the citizens of this township get out of it? You know? You're supposed to be looking out for us, doing things for us. People keep asking for sidewalks, people keep asking for their sewers to be taken care of, people keep asking for help for a lot of things. But you keep spending $83,000 for a fishing contest. Do we really need that? I mean, I know it's great exposure for the township and for the county and all the politicians. Yes, go ahead and smile, yeah, because you know I'm talking about you. But this is ridiculous. You keep spending money for little things here, little things there. Everything's for Brandenburg. Everything's for Brandenburg. As we know, there's, 10 to 15% of people of this township use Brandenburg. The other 85% don't. You know, if you really want to do something with Brandenburg, like you keep claiming, get rid of that marsh you got there and put a beach in. That's what this is. This is a lakefront community, and you don't have a beach here for your own citizens. Everybody has to go down to New Baltimore, you know? And a lot of money was spent on that marsh. Should have been a beach, but that's just my thinking. But I really want to appreciate that, you know, this board takes a little bit of time and is going to look at the 25 budget, because I've seen there's a big increase in the amount of money you want to give Brandenburg for next year, and a big increase for some other spots. And it's going to take time to go over that budget, because I had a hard time just skimming through it just to see it, all the places you're feeding money into. So take your time, take a good look at that budget, because there's going to be quite a discussion about it. Thank you.
All right, Mike Horton, 50393 Bauer. So first things first, I want to say it was great to see all the people that came out for the fire open house back the previous weekend, and then the following weekend was also the trunk or treat at the firehouse. It was a great turnout for both events, and we get to showcase the importance of how the fire department is integrated within our community. And ultimately, everybody had a great time, especially kids, so it was a worthwhile opportunity of both events. However, one thing I want to note is something I've brought up several times to this board is the concrete parking lot behind Fire Station 3. Again, heavily damaged, it needs serious repairs, and it was kind of, it was very disappointing to have both public events on that type of situation. It's a simple, well, it's not simple, it's costly, but it is a worthwhile fix for your own public image as well as operations. So please take note of that for a future investment in our community. Aside from that, putting up the 2025 budget during this meeting was probably an ill-advised situation, not only because of the preclusion right before an election, but also because take note of how many people were in this room before that public hearing was set for that. Everyone was in here for the drainage basin vote or discussion. And right when that ends, what we should know by now, after several years of this, a lot of people leave when their issue is done. And so you don't have that much of an audience, even if it's something in succession right after, because people don't want to stay for that. But it was something that is very crucial. The next year's budget is a very important topic. These types of things should either be planned as their own meeting, or you should have had it before the basin. And that's kind of the whole thing here. And it does look deceptive to the public if you're not being honest about it. Lastly, I know this is probably our final meeting before the next election, and I know it's been very contentious, as I warned about in the past. And this is the whole thing people need to realize, that the atmosphere within the country is very, dare I say, self-defeating or destructive. If you wish to push past that, you need to understand how the difference that I think everyone focuses so much on voting because we've been told so long that voting is your civic duty. Voting isn't your only civic duty, though. Civic duty entails a lot of different things. It can be voting, it can be serving in public office. It could also be working in a governmental position. It can be serving the public trust as a police officer or a medical worker or as a firefighter or as a teacher or as any other type of volunteer. It's a multitude of different aspects. Lastly, I'm going to say this.
Thank you.
Government is more than just about what happens in Washington, D.C. Elections are more than just about what for the presidency. And politics is more than just about Democrats for.
Thank you. Got to be fair to everybody. Any further comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board. Trustee Anderson, we'll start with you.
Okay, congratulations are in order for Mrs. Linda McNair for her years of participation and stewardship with the Friends of Chesterfield Township Police Department organization. Also, congrats to William Shaw on his appointment to a full-time position with the Chesterfield Facilities and Operations Department, and a welcome back to former Sergeant Ken Anderson, who will provide our police department with his professional expertise. Tonight there was a public hearing on the 270-page 2025 Chesterfield budget. I would strongly support a town hall type meeting on this. The budget is the actual, and encourage our constituents to participate. This budget is the actual financial lifeblood of our township. It might further educate the 4 or more members on this board that enact it. Tonight's agenda had 17 business items under sections 9 and 10 with approximately 395 pages of support, not including the total cost of those aforementioned actions. There's also a board meeting scheduled for Tuesday, November 12th, 1 week after the general election. One can only ponder what the agenda and the relevant expenditures might be. The new board, with 1 or more members, will take office at 12 noon, November 20th, 24, according to the Michigan Township Association. Unless there is a rush to tie up township business with their inherent expenses, all non-statutory items should be postponed for the perusal of and adjudication by the incoming board. That board should bear the responsibility for the township's business conducted during their watch. Finally, be aware of those trick-or-treaters on the evening of October 31st. Good night.
Thanks, Mr. Supervisor. Just starting off with a little business. As it relates to the budget, I didn't make the motion to postpone that vote because I felt it had been rammed down anybody's throat. To be fair, budget process has been pretty open, and there's a standing invitation for any elected official to sit down and talk with department heads or the finance director if there is questions or concerns. I'm not sure that we can do it this budget cycle, but I happen to sit, and I know Trustee Vosberg, you're very familiar with this process. You did it for many years, but the county is dealing with their 2025 budget. And their process is, in essence, every department head comes before the Board of Commissioners and explains their expenditures, their needs for the upcoming year. Any requests for staff or capital improvement are all discussed by the budget during the budget process. And I don't know if we could duplicate that, but I think it would be worthwhile to explore because we've had varying sort of rollouts of the budget. And when I was first engaged in politics, a man that Trustee Supervisor Kersten and I have much respect for, Mr. Ellis, On election years, when the budget was being considered, he invited all of the candidates in who had made it through the primary, and right around the period of time that we're in now. And I remember being invited in to one of those meetings, and the budget was gone through, very comprehensively, page by page. And I appreciated that, and I really didn't feel good about voting for a budget without allowing individuals who may be in this seat or some other seat, but we know that we'll have one at least new board member, and I think that individual or individuals should be allowed to weigh in on the budget. So that was the basis for my request. Some personal things, Ms. Hutchinson, I do enjoy the pictures of you and your new puppy, and I know that's a welcome addition to your home, and I'm just happy to see that because I know the struggles that you had with your previous animal. The things I wanted to close on, Mr. Wharton, you brought up two very nice events that were both held at the police department, or fire department. It was great to see the families out there. We really had a great night for the trunk or treat. Ms. Ross, your family is just astounding. Your son, watching him kind of care for his sister, just was a great night. I also had a wonderful time at the senior center on a Friday. I'd like to give some credit to Ms. Vanderson and her staff, who put on an Oktoberfest festival for almost 100 seniors, and they did it flawlessly in some space that had never really accommodated that kind of activity before, and that was a great event, and I appreciate all the work that you and your team did. Lastly, as Trustee Anderson mentioned, this is our last board meeting before possible lame duck meeting in November. And I want to just say what a privilege and honor it's been, no matter how it turns out, November 5th, to serve as your trustee for the last 12 years. And I deeply appreciate the experiences, none of which more than my relationship with the Chesterfield Police Department. And to honor Mrs. McNair, who has been a part of just anything good that's happened in our police department since I've moved here, and the friendships that I've made with those individuals over there who literally put their lives on the line for us. Brian, you know that she loves me more than you, but I do appreciate the work and the service that your entire family has put into this township, and thank you for that. Thank you.
I know you're absolutely wrong because I am her favorite. She's holding. Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I too would like to thank Kathy McNair for, appreciate all the work she's done and congratulate her on receiving the Dylan Rheker Volunteer Award. And I would like to make a comment about loose dogs on the pathway too. I think we need to take another look at that. There are many loose dogs on the pathways. Most of them are under control of the owner, but all it takes is one, and I have been here when there was one not under control. So, I did call the police department, and they did come out. But I think we need to perhaps enforce that, because there is an ordinance that all dogs must be on a leash. Thank you.
It's all yours, sir.
Well, I got one more meeting, so I just want to say congratulations.
Barrier's going to take all 6 minutes today and next week. So
we'll see what happens on November 12th. Congrats to Mrs. McNair. Brian, congrats to your mom for all the work she's put into that. Good luck to all the candidates who, 2 weeks from today, still, I'm sure the votes won't all be counted by 10 o'clock at night, but good luck. I'm not a part of it, and I'm actually very happy. Retirement life has already started for me, and I'm enjoying it very much. The comment about the water line on Sutton Road, I believe the supervisor addressed that at a prior meeting, that it's eventually going to be replaced, but it's going to be going down the side. It's not going down the middle of the road. Am I correct on that, Mr. Supervisor? That's correct. Okay, that's why I thought I heard you say that at a meeting. So, yeah, so the new water line will be going down the shoulder, not down in the middle of the road, and Sutton Road will not get ripped up. And that's about all I have. And again, good luck to everybody in the election in 2 weeks, and see where the dice roll.
Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I also want to congratulate Kathy McNair on being recognized as Volunteer of the Year. She has done a lot of work in that over the years and kept really good records and kept everything on track. And really appreciate not just her, but all of those volunteers for not just the Friends of the Police, but also the newly started the Friends of the Fire Department. And there have been a lot of fantastic events, and a lot of effort has gone into those by employees. I know that participation from the board members and also the multitude of volunteers that have gone into putting on those events in the last few weeks. I appreciate all of you. I don't often agree with Trustee Vosberg, or with Trustee Joseph, but tonight I did. I did agree with Trustee Joseph on the fact that I believe that it is up to the new board to kind of discuss and vote on this next year's budget. That's how it was when I first came in, and so that is why I supported that. Thank you.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Regarding election results, for those who are watching the election results, you can get those at the county clerk's website. That is the easiest way to get them. The results are going to be taken to the county physically under police escort. One of our staff members will be taking those to the county, as well as having the county sheriff pick them up if they are ready when the county sheriff stops by. So all of the results are not being transmitted electronically in any way. They are all being physically carried with proper chain of custody under police escort either way. So your best case scenario is 10 o'clock before you see any results. I would say look for them closer to 11, and that's if all things go perfectly. A lot of people are curious as to why absentee ballot results come in later than the rest. Just like to clear that up for you. We must wait by law at those drop boxes until 8 p.m. to receive any ballots. So we have staff that are waiting at 8 p.m. They check the boxes, and then those ballots have to be brought to the clerk's office. They have to go through the proper vetting process. So they have to be transported, then they have to be vetted. They have to go through the process then we have to rerun reports before they even make it to the tabulators. So the process to get those ballots from those boxes through that process to even get to the AV room is a minimum 45 minutes. And that's if we go quickly. It's usually more like an hour before those even make it. So before they even make it to the counting room, it's 9 o'clock. Then they have to run, and then we have to tabulate results, reports, and so forth. So that process is why it takes longer for absentee ballots, and that's if everything balances. If they have to be rerun, add another hour to an hour and a half, depending. So just to give folks an idea, I think sometimes there's some concern as to why absentee ballots take so long. That's why there's a special process that has to take place with those. If anyone is aware of any voters that are requiring some assistance for any reason, if they are disabled or if they perhaps need language assistance or anything on that order, please have them contact the clerk's office. We do have special services that are available to disabled voters or voters that need special assistance, and we can help them with that. If there are any other questions that anyone has about where to vote, when to vote, how to vote, what your options are, please stop by the clerk's office. We are open regular hours. Also, just one additional thing on the dogs. For those who are have those dogs loose, I agree. We are here very late, often prepping for the election, and when people have those dogs running loose, they run right out in front of us, and we don't want your dogs getting hurt either. So not only do we want the dogs not hurting other dogs or other people, but we don't want to see anything happen to your lovely pets. So please, for their sake and for everyone's, keep them on a leash. Thank you.
Just a few statements. The budget process is the budget process. It is published in our existing budget book, the 2024 year. The schedule is in there. It's been published. It's been recognized. We followed that process ever since I became supervisor. It is not deceptive, and it's not being crammed down anybody's throat. The first public disclosure was September 13th. The board had been emailed draft copies before that. There's been, as Trustee Joseph said, an open invitation for participation from all elected officials, and that still stands today, no matter what the date is. The budget is a modest increase, and it does include capital plans. To the statement that there are no water line replacement, water line replacements have been in the capital plan for years. There are again 2 in this year's. The the Sutton Drive water line, that's been addressed. The comments about the Bassmasters taking the $83,000 fund transfer again, not true, misinformation and a bad statement. And just, I'm always reminded by a trustee that the budget is a guide, it's not permission to purchase. So anything that the budget approves, or even if the board did approve the budget tonight, any project would have to come back in front of the board for ultimate permission. Just some comments, misstatements, and I don't know why they continue to do it. Sour grapes is the only thing I can relate it to. The Demink Pump Station, Bay Harbor, has been under renovation for the past 12 months. It has never failed. It is in the process of being upgraded. The board had originally approved a $1.2 million renovation. We received a $4 million grant earmark, and that process is still ongoing. The ultimate, it will be back in front of the board in November with a presentation from our current engineer. There is some failure in the lines. We've had presentations of the discharge in front of the pump station going down Jefferson, which is 45 plus years old, is failing. And that has been noted even in the original engineering report. So that is a project that needs to be addressed. And as we said previous board meeting, the TIP project for reconstruction of Jefferson is underway, and we approved that resolution. And it's key that we move forward with water and sewer lines that are in that area, and we'll continue to do that. Which rolls into my next topic. A lot of our records, a lot of what pump and stations or retention ponds that we discussed tonight, my hope is very soon we have a single platform GIS system that will encompass everything from voter election precincts to water mains, water sizes, sanitation sizes, that not only is accessible to internal township departments on a single platform, but also made available to the public. They can go to the website, they can look at a map, and they can tell exactly where water, sewer, property lines, a whole host of projects. We're bringing that forward. So there's nothing crammed down anybody's throat. There's nothing deceptive. In fact, the public hearing was held and the public that was here present tonight for the retention and detention basins could have stayed and participated. It was on a published agenda. So to that, I will make a motion, or accept a motion to adjourn. Trustee Demink, supported by Supervisor Kersten. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 10:00.